Okay, so welcome. May 11th, May the 4th be with you. This is 2023 Beginner Boost, which we are now calling the SKILSTAK Beginner Boost. I'm going to talk about what SKILSTAK is and why and all that stuff. So if you are here, whether you're here on YouTube or you're here on Twitch, we're only doing the live thing on Twitch, by the way, right? So we're going to go for an hour. We're going to take a break for 5-10 minutes, and then we're going to go for another hour. And a couple of logistic things right off the bat. So if you're just starting to watch this, if you miss it, just know that we're committing. We're only doing 2 hours a week, which is, I know it's not very much. The reason is we're going to try as hard as possible to have the community help us put chapters in the YouTube videos. Okay, so and we're gonna wander around like we always do. We have a general direction. That's always the way we do it. That's why we do it every year. We're going to talk about that some more later. But the bottom line is, if you get dropped or left behind, or you don't like how the pace is too slow, just know you can go on YouTube, and there will be, I promise you, there will be chapters you can like jump ahead with. Okay, so like that one like anecdote that I used, where I told you like some story from my history or past, something like that. You can deliberately jump past that and just know that you're not going to have to deal with that. Okay, so I don't need my headphones at the moment, so I'll take those off. So those are the logistics of how we're going to do this. LBG, we got everybody here. So welcome one and all. I just wanted to say, whether you are a longtime veteran, and I'm reminded of that with LBG joining us, who's been here helping me set up my own Kubernetes cluster back on the lab back here. By the way, let me just describe the surroundings here. Some of you might be a little confused at this, at these surroundings. So I am actually in an apartment still. We're going to be here for another 1.5 years or so. If you want more details on that, you're going to have to come watch me stream on Zwift, where I've been biking to try to get in shape. I've actually dropped 12 kilos, which is about 25 pounds, since February 3rd, on my bicycle, streaming it on Zwift. So if that's a side thing, but if that's interesting to you, that's the main thing that I'm streaming these days. I haven't been streaming a lot of tech things. I haven't done any development. I noticed a bunch of my GitHub people drop me as a sponsor. Whatever. By the way, speaking of sponsorship, if you want to support the Beginner Boost, the best thing you can do is be here, participate in the Discord, and especially if you're a veteran like LBG, you can provide input during the chat. Now, the chat is not going to be on the screen for the YouTubers, and the reason for that is obvious. I mean, we've had people come in and make it, destroy an entire video just because they decided they wanted all the attention to do something stupid, and we can't have that. So I do have the chat right here, which I am able to read. Kubernetes is better than Zwift. Kubernetes is awesome, I agree, but I have priorities, and my priorities right now are my health, and I'm going to be doing nothing but Zwift on stream and the Boost for a good long while. So if you are not into that kind of content, I understand. It's been really fun. I've been making a lot of friends with people who don't necessarily care about technology, but do care about their health. And we're going to talk about balance on today, and setting up a sustainable learning practice and all that stuff. That's going to be a part of the Boost this year. Probably we'll talk a little bit about it today, and we're going to talk more about it probably at the end when we talk about building sustainable habits into your life. So like, what are you going to do later and all that? And one of those habits is this, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I lost balance, and I started coding 18-20 hours a day for about 1 year. I drank a lot of alcohol, and I blimped out. I got really unhealthy, and I had some complications, and I went back to that. So that's why I'm doing this Zwift thing. If you don't want to do that, and I'm not judging you, I'm not judging anybody, and if you don't like that content and you're mad that I'm not doing Kubernetes, I'm sorry. I will eventually do the Kubernetes stuff again more. I'm going to build my lab. So let me talk about that for a second. Okay, so in addition, so here's the main content that I produce on YouTube and on Twitch. Number one is the Boost. So the Boost is the number one content that's going to get my priority every year, no matter what. And I don't know how long it's going to take. We're going down to 2 hours a week here, so it could easily spread out all the way until Christmas to finish it, which is part of the topic that we're going to talk about. So And we really don't know how long it's going to take us. And because we're doing all of the content, I'm doing all of the stuff with you. That makes it take a lot longer. The first year we did this, like 4 years ago, I just told people what to do, and I said, come back and we'll talk about it if you have a problem. And that didn't work because they would have hang-ups and they didn't have questions. So I'm going to do everything, and then you can stop the video and you can watch the video and do it, and you stop the video when you get confused, or if I hit a problem that maybe is something related to something new, we've had that many times, then you can go through the problem with me. And I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail a lot while I'm doing all of the stuff that we've got planned. And that's part of the fun of it, is that you get to see me fail, and then we all fail together, and then we learn. And we're talking about that. We're going to talk about learning today. So that the primary content on this channel is going to be SKILSTAK Beginner Boost, and that's every Saturday. There will be some Saturdays we'll have to change the day because of conflicts, and but you can always go get that on YouTube. Second content, the main content, of course, is going to be me doing a lot of Zwift stuff where I'm just here. But the reason it relates to the tech stuff is that most of the time when I am streaming on my bike, I can answer your questions. So if you have a tech question, okay, if you have a tech question and you don't feel like you're getting a solution on Discord, the thing to take from this is you can find me on my bike here, and I can maybe huff and puff, but I can answer your tech questions while I'm on the bike. Now, I'm not going to be able to show you, but if you have specific questions about something, I can kind of direct you to the right thing and help you, give you the feedback you need to be able to do the searching that you need to do. Ultimately, though, I'm going to be pushing back a lot. Better than ChatGPT, not much, So I'm going to be pushing back a lot on you and that's the main topic for today, is learning. How to learn, how to own your learning, how to take control of it, and everything. I want to get onto that's the main topic for today. So the third main content on this Twitch channel and YouTube channel is going to be Kubernetes and Linux lab stuff. I call it Home Lab Init. And at the moment, I don't have enough time to do both the physical stuff and the boost. So either the Home Lab Init will be after the boost concludes, and which is nice because it's kind of like an extension of the boost. How to install Linux on your own hardware, how to buy their own hardware, what kind of hardware to buy, whether you should use, Proxmox or just use, Qemu, and all these other questions about how to set up your own lab at home. And that includes how to install Linux on hardware. And we're going to get into that when we talk about what's included in the boost, right? So what am I going to learn while I'm here? And what is the scope and all that? And that's the main thing that we're going to talk about right now. So let's go to that. How you doing, B7? Good to see you. B7H30 is here. B7H30 is another great streamer. Please somebody shout them out. Do we have any mods there? If we had any mods there, please shout them out. B7H30 regularly streams their own learning journey as well. And I just want to put an invitation out to anybody out there. If you are beginning and you think that you don't have what it takes to be a streamer, you're very wrong. Because a lot of the beginners out there want to see other beginners. And if you don't believe me, just sign up for Science and Tech. Am I still in the Zwift category, by the way? I think I am, aren't I? Am I still streaming to Zwift? I am streaming to Zwift, aren't I? I have to change that right now. I am so sorry. So there's your first mistake here. I'll stop recording. But all right, we properly changed our category, so I'm not in Zwift anymore. No wonder so many of my Zwift friends were confused. They're in here like, why is he talking about technology and he's not even on his bike? What the hell? One of many screw-ups I promise you I will make over the course of the thing. All right, so how much time we got? I don't want to go over time. We don't have much time. We only have 2 hours. I'm going to be really good about time. So if I go over time, I want everybody to remind me at noon, we're going to stop again. Okay, at noon, we're going to take a break for 10 minutes and do whatever we have to do. And during that time, we can listen to music and talk and party and all that stuff. And then we're going to start up the video again. Okay, so if you want to be here for the party time, you got to come watch the Twitch thing. And that's all going to be cut out of the YouTube video. All right. Thank you for all that. All right, so let's talk about what SKILSTAK is and then what the boost is. So I'm not going to go into detail about what SKILSTAK is. You can go there and read it. SKILSTAK is, long story short, is the name of the company that I formed in 2013 to fill the need to teach, particularly young people, but not always, coding skills, and coding, Linux, terminal, that kind of thing, hacking skills. There was nobody doing it in 2013. And if you'll remember 2013, if you can go back that far, there was like a huge influx of, boot camps and all kinds of stuff, because there's this huge need for these skills, but nobody, and I mean nobody, was teaching it. And during those years, the word got out, and I started to get invitations directly from the directors of several private schools, and can you come help us set up a program here? Can you come this and that and that? And it's a long story. It was a long story, but in the midst of that, I learned a lot about how people learn. I always wanted it to be informal, and the reason SKILSTAK is related to the Boost is because everything I learned at SKILSTAK. I mean, I've always kind of been an educator. Just I don't like the word teacher. I don't like the word teach in general. It's a transitive verb, which we'll talk about. I think it's wrong. I think it's learn is the only word you should use. And so I believe in that we needed to have this need. And I went out and I took I took a 40% loss on my retirement money to take it out, start a company, and bought a van and everything. And you can go look all that stuff up if you want to. We actually have T-shirts, and so another benefit of this, I actually have swag now. So for those of you who want merch that says "Learn to Code, Save the World" on the back there, so I will say that. So this is the first year that we're putting the Beginner Boost underneath SKILSTAK.io. So SKILSTAK.io is it's no longer a C Corp. It's now an S Corp. It was an S Corp. SKILSTAK is now a proprietary. It's a business that I run still, and I'm not doing any private mentoring. I put out a call for private mentors, people that I could private mentor. I might take on 3 to 5 people individually. I'm very committed to people that I take on personally. But I don't know if I'm going to do that yet. So that's where SKILSTAK came from. And the Boost, honestly, the Boost is my attempt to take the same content that got everybody started there and put that out for free onto the web. Now, it takes me a lot of time and energy, and the community is very helpful. It's also, the Boost is also my attempt to expand what SKILSTAK is into more than just Mr. Rob's school, and make it into a learning community where we all share and stuff. And that is something that I was very happy to be a part of when I saw that the people that I was teaching teach others. In fact, I'm very proud to say every computer club that was started in the region within 100 miles started because some of the kids and the parents that came to SKILSTAK went on to start their own clubs and their own programs, after school programs and stuff. And I'm really, really proud of that, including one as far as one student who drove like 90 minutes, and just to be there every week. And she's built up an entire coding program for girls in her middle school. I think she's probably in college now, but I'm just really proud of it. So that's where SKILSTAK comes from. So SKILSTAK is the organization that I formed some time ago. It's got a weird spelling on the name, so I could get the domain and everything. And it was designed based on an app that I made for myself when I started realizing my skills were kind of falling to the side because I was so busy looking for bugs in C code at IBM, and I started to assess my own skill stack. What skills did I want to be in my stack, and that's where that term came from, which we will talk about. You can go ahead and read this page if you want. This is Make Docs. This is the first time I've ever done this. I've designed this to be so that if you click on here, you can just kind of like go through each one and go to the bottom and then kind of read through it. It's actually really nice on a phone. I did put a bunch of really nice things people have been saying. I don't get paid. If you do want to sponsor me, go to github.com/RWXRob if you want to sponsor me there. Recently, I've had some people dropping their sponsorships because they haven't been doing a lot of coding because of the Zwift thing, and that's fine. But if you believe in this content and you want to help me out, that would be the place to go do that. And you can do whatever you feel like you want to do in terms of support. So let's get on to the Beginner Boost. So let's just keep going through. This is This is it was a database. This is a YAML document. We're going to learn how to make those. Overview of the beginner boost. So we're on the beginner boost there. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just reading through the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. Welcome to the SKILSTAK Beginner Boost in 2020. I just told you everything. So this is something of a tradition, and May the 4th we do it. May the 4th be with you. The whole Jedi Podman thing. The Jedi Podman thing really works for learning, and let's just jump right into what that means. Okay, so the nature of true learning, and this is substantiated by lots of material that I could cite right here. I'm thinking about Sir Ken Robinson and Paulo Freire, and I'll list all these resources, and they'll be in the documents here if you want to dig into it. But the bottom line is that human beings, not just human beings, like primates in general, have been teaching one another things through experience since the dawn of time. I mean, that's the nature of learning as an animal, from one creature to another. Somebody who knows a skill or a bit of information shares that and helps the other one learn it. And you see this in primates. In fact, I watched a whole documentary about what makes humans versus the other primates. And spoiler alert, it's our ability to transfer that learning generationally through writing. If other primates had that, they would be just as advanced as us, because they do this. And in fact, you can see them. If they want to learn how to shuck a coconut, they will show one another how to do it. Here's how you shuck a coconut, and here's another one, right? And so the reason that I'm taking you through this, the nature of learning, is because this idea about Master Padawan, if you want to call it, the guru idea, which dates back, to Indus Plain, like forever, or, any place that you encounter true learning, it's always somebody who knows sharing and helping and mentoring somebody who is learning. Right. And we're not going to get into a huge debate about why Ren should never have been able to use the lightsaber so well because she didn't get any training. We're not going to go there. I would love to go there, but we're not going to do that. You can't do it unless you've practiced it, right? And it's not the master doing it for the Padawan. It's the Padawan training and doing it, and the master saying, okay, change this little thing here, change first six, showing them, and then letting them do it. 70% of it is action, being able to do the thing. So that's what learning is about. That's how learning works, right? And the idea of a teacher has been, Paulo Freire has a, I'm paraphrasing, Paulo Freire, who wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is a very controversial book. It's banned in some areas. Takes on, basically, the book is written, Pedagogy of the Oppressed is a book written by Paulo Freire, which is fundamentally about how to incite revolution. And the reason I want to talk about Paulo Freire right away is because, let me write his name down here so you guys can see. Paulo Freire. Did I see his name right? Brazilian educator. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. There you go. So this is the book. If you want to read it yourself, there are some misogynistic parts of the book that are not very nice. It's very, very, very dense. It's very academic. Bottom line, Paulo Freire was front and center in many of the revolutions, including all the ones that, Che Guevara and all of those things. And he studied revolution, and he was like, how do we get revolutions to take? How do we get them to really work? And the focus of Pedagogy of the Oppressed was actually kind of set aside by educators for, a lot, and not to mention the misogyny and some of the stuff in there that would never fly today, which is, it's written in the 60s, so by a guy who was already old in the 60s. So anyway, but there is the fundamental piece that everybody takes out of this is that banker-style education doesn't work. Okay, now what is banker-style education? And if you're bored and you want to get into the tech stuff, I'm going to tell you right now, we'll get into a little bit of the tech stuff at the end of today, but most of the tech stuff starts on Saturday, right? So today being May the 4th, the primary focus for today is, getting you motivated to learn and helping you understand how to learn in the right way. That is the primary motivation for today. Okay, so I'm going to be citing a bunch of things. This is going to be all that we're going to do here. I'm not going to, I know you want to get into the tech stuff, but it's super important that you understand the nature of learning before we dive into the rest of the stuff. Otherwise, you'll just be floundering and you'll be like, I don't understand and stuff. So I have to help you understand this first. So he studied revolution, and his conclusion and thesis is that revolution sticks when you help the oppressed learn for themselves that they are oppressed without doing it. And it's a very delicate balance, but it boils down to creating the situations in which learning can happen. And in this case, he's focused on learning that they're oppressed, learning about how to change the nature of the oppression. And he gets into the dynamics of oppressed versus oppressor and how, I mean, one of my favorite all-time, look, I'm sorry, I really love Hunger Games. I like the movies, I don't like the books. But one of the reasons I like the Hunger Games, movies, spoiler alert, is that it's a perfect example of what happens when you repress somebody, and then the repressors become the oppressors, the repressed become the oppressors. Right. So, and the only way to avoid that is to help the masses themselves be strong enough and be supported enough to do their own learning, to come to their own realizations. You have to build the base. You have to build the base of the people, and you can't do it. You can't do it for them. You can't open their heads, as Freire says, and pour information in. You can't tell them to sit there in rank and file, a system that came from the war, by the way, according to Sir Ken Robinson, who was knighted for his work in education. You can't tell them, sit in the row, shut up until I say something to you, listen to what I have to say and learn it and regurgitate it on the test. That is not how learning happens. It never has been. It never has been how learning happens. Yet that is how we do the learning. Okay. And if I'm going to get loud here, because this is one of my greatest annoyances and frustrations with the world right now, is, Mandela on my wall over here says, if you want to change the world, the single greatest weapon you can use to change the world, and God knows our world needs it right now, the single greatest weapon to change the world is education. And I completely agree. And Freire would agree that if you, not just education, but you have to help people be able to educate themselves. You have to help them be aware that they're not educated, that they can open their eyes. And Ken Robinson literally says that oppression starts in the home. It starts in the home when we're children. The first time that we're told to shut up and sit there and don't speak until spoken to is the beginning of oppression. And we are so used to having the creativity, and I quote from Ken Robinson, beaten out of us, that we stop being creative beings when we were kids. And it's a tragedy. I almost swore there. It gets me very emotional, because this is what is wrong with the world. This is what's wrong with the whole world. The whole entire world is screwed up because people have been oppressed and stopped their ability to learn. And if you look around and you find somebody that seems like they know what's going on in the world, almost always they have got autodidactic tendencies, not just independent learning, but they have thrown off that oppression from a very early age and decided, no, I'm going to learn for myself. And I'm going to go to the people who know, and I'm going to talk to those people, and I'm going to ask them questions, and I'm going to pepper them, and I'm going to be the most annoying Catholic schoolgirl in the entire, like my wife, in the entire place. I'm going to get written up all the time because all I can do is ask questions. People don't want questions. People that want to repress you don't want questions, including your own parents. All right. So the important part of this is that what I'm telling you, raising a child oppression. Raising a child is not oppression. Telling a child that they should not figure out their own things and that they should not spoke. There's different styles for raising a child. I didn't say raising a child is oppression. I say that oppression starts in the home, and I'm just repeating what they're saying, and I agree. All right, Paulo Freire actually suggests that most oppression starts in the home, where children are taught not to question authority, and that's something I disagree with completely. And if you don't agree with that, that's perfectly your right, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to find your own path here. I don't even want you to latch on to what I'm telling you. right? If I've succeeded in doing anything, it's causing you to question what I'm saying. And by the end of today, I hope that everybody understands that if I've done anything successful today, it's been to help you realize that you are responsible for your own learning, and only you. You are the only one. You have permission to learn. You have the responsibility to learn. And I would say go so far as to say you have a social responsibility to share what you learn. Maybe not for free. I mean, everybody. I'm not saying give away your life for free. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you look at the whole of society and the world, that all successful civilizations have an ethic of sharing knowledge. You look at like blacksmithing in the Middle Ages, right? You look like squires during the night. I mean, there's so many things wrong with those times as well. But it was always about sharing what you have, and picking out one or two or three people and teaching them, and that was a social responsibility. It wasn't something that special privileged people got to do because they had money to pay for the private school. How many times have I'm so tired of, I mean, there's a private school that wanted me to help them out, actually. $20,000 a year. $20,000 a year for one child. This is a K through 12 school in America. That kind of education is never going to be able to top up with the other one. And so anyway, so I don't want anybody. Okay, so this is what I'm going to conclude with this whole Vive la Révolution, which is what this is about. Okay, I deliberately, it's not just, tomorrow, if you look at the calendar, tomorrow is May the 5th, right? So, I mean, it's, this week of May the 1st, by the way, is a different holiday for certain people. I won't go into it. But the point is, give them stimulants and call them ADHD. Yeah, I don't want to go there. But this week in May has become associated with revolution. And that's a very specific reason that May the 4th, I think, it's not just Jedi Day. It's also the week of revolution. So if you take one thing away from this, I want it to be that, take this moment to reflect on how you can create a personal revolution with regard to your own learning. All right. Now, what does that even mean? Right. So that means, number one, taking responsibility for your own learning, as I've said. And number two, taking responsibility for your own learning, and giving yourself permission to learn. There's a lot of people that still need to give themselves permission. They think that they can't do it. Right. And then three, sharing what you learn. Right. And let's talk about the sharing what you learn thing for a second. Okay. So has anybody, I'm going to ask a question here for a bit. I'm going to do a little of interactive stuff. We're almost done for this hour, and then, but we're still on good time. Has anybody ever worked with somebody who refuses to share their knowledge with you because they're afraid that it's going to make them not have a job? Raise your hand if you've ever encountered that kind of individual. That is called scarcity mentality. Okay. And if that is like the antithesis of a good society, it's the idea that if I share with you, that I will not have anything. Let me give you an example of something that happened recently. My wife, who was pursuing her master's in fine art, was going around at her own expense with me, looking at different fine art programs and finding the good ones that she wanted to. And she found one that I won't name names, but she found one that she wanted. And so she had done the work, she'd done the 3 or 4, and she knew that was the only one. And she wrote in her application to that one, "You're the only one I want." And she wrote it very nice. It was a very well written application. But in the process, she also shared, because my wife is like me. She's a natural sharer. She's the opposite of scarcity mentality. She will go out and she'll say, "Well, yeah, so-and-so." And so she shared with several of her close friends at the McCall Center, where she's at, about these free fine art Masters of Fine Arts programs. And the people with whom she shared it had no idea. They had no idea. They were like, "I didn't even know that was a thing. Oh my gosh, that's the perfect thing for me. I think I should probably apply." And another one was she shared with somebody else who was a little bit more of a veteran, and they also. So the long story short, she told these other people, And two of the people that she told about it, she goes, you should really do this. This is a great idea for you. Because she's a natural mentor. My wife it's what makes me love her so much. She's such a natural giving person. She gives of herself all the time. She's the opposite of scarcity mentality. She doesn't force you to learn it, but if she sees somebody in need, she'll stick clay in the hands of people that are doing paper mache and then completely reform their art practice, right? Because she sees an opportunity for them to grow, and she's constantly thinking about that. She's always thinking about, how can I help these other people grow that are all around her? That is an example of how humans should behave. The opposite of, I don't have enough. If I help somebody else, they're going to take my spot, or they're going to, I'm not going to have enough. Well, let me tell you what happened. Okay. Now, some people would say this is a confirmation of that negative idea. She shared with those two other people at the McCall Center, and all of them applied to the same exact MFA program as her. And guess what? They got in and she didn't. And I got to tell you, for a moment, as a couple, we were really reeling, because we had been practicing this idea of like non-scarcity and and all of this stuff. And here we had just gotten slapped in the face with the very thing that people who practice scarcity mentality would say, see, you shouldn't have told them, and then you would have got in. Number one, there's so many fallacies with this. Number one, there's no assurance that she would have still got in. Now, the reason she didn't get in is complicated, and I don't want to get into it, but it ended up being a much, much better thing. And I do believe in a higher power, right? You can call it God, you can call it whatever you want. I do believe in a higher power, and sometimes that higher power operates in ways that are really weird. So I'm not going to go into the details. You'll have to check back with me later. But she ended up getting something that is wildly better than that MFA program. But you know what? That MFA program was the exact perfect thing for the people that she shared it with. And it was because she shared the idea and and helped with those other things, that those other people were able to grow, and that allowed her to grow in other ways that she didn't even know about. Okay. Now, you don't have to be a religious police person to believe in a higher power, and your higher power doesn't even have to be intelligent. Right? The higher power just means that you believe that there's something bigger than yourself going on. That's all it really means. And if you want to look into it, you can. You can be 100% atheist and still believe in a higher power. And I happen to believe that. So, yeah, we need to share with Jacob on it. I don't know about that. So fight the scarcity mentality, whatever you want. I want to tell you about somebody who used to practice scarcity mentality. I told you it was going to be story time today, right? So let me give an example of somebody who practices scarcity mentality. Okay, there was a guy that the first job I had as a system administrator. I am Mr. Share Everything, right? And nobody there knew about Linux. These were all Solaris people. They've been working from the military, and we'll get into what those are. Those are operating systems for different computers, right? And one of the guys, who became one of my best friends of all time. I desperately miss him now. He's not dead or anything. I just lost contact. And Brent, if you're out there, we got to play some chess. And I was nervous. It was my first system admin job. I was afraid of, breaking things and all this. And there was this other guy that was just really brooding and dark all the time, and just had this really negative energy. And Brent didn't. Brent was very quiet. He had like a military mustache, and he's super duper stoic, very military, and very, very, very quiet, but a nice guy, a guy that got a nice, and it was a really smart guy actually, and different. But anyway, he would tell me the story about this one guy would never ever share with him. He would never share with him any of his skills. They were like always, separate. You're like, no, I'm not going to share your skills with me. And if you fast forward like 5 years, Brent gave me a nice thanks award. And he said, I just want to thank you for all the sharing you've done, because I basically brought him into Linux, and he became a certified Linux engineer, surpassed me in Linux knowledge by a long ways. And it was because I shared Linux with him that he went on to do that. But in the process, I was like, what's up with this other guy? Nobody ever really made a bond with him. And then the feds came in and carted the guy away. I wasn't there for that day. I really, really wish I was there. So the feds came in, grabbed the guy by both the arms, and took him out of the building. because he had been hacking all kinds of stuff, and in a bad way, right? I mean, not even good. He was like phone freaking and stealing people's credit cards and using the money to build up, shell companies and everything. And the feds came and carted him away. And the reason I tell you that story is because I remember specifically Brent told me, oh yeah, that guy never talks about anything. He never shares his knowledge with anyone. He's always, it's like he's afraid somebody's going to, and he had that scarcity mentality, and that's what happened to him. So, anyway, so that's it. We got a question here. Rob, I am a student at CS University. Should I tell my friends about the boost? I would. MIT has something that's like the boost. It's called the Forgotten Semester. I think it should have been the first thing that you learn. Let's talk about the content now. We are coming up on 11:49, so we have another 10 minutes to kind of get you motivated about learning, and then we're going to go through the curriculum, the outline in the last hour, and talk about the specific things that we're going to cover, and then to help you make a decision about if you want to continue. I realize that I have scarcity mentality of sorts, but I also feel like they're not attending lectures even after I tell them they would dilute my resolution to the series. Do you understand? Oh, right. Please tell me what I should do. I don't know. That's a tough one. That have scarcity. Yeah. Hello. The missing semester. Did you go to the missing semester? Nice. So I've talked about Paulo Freire. Let me just say it again. So I'm not going to go into detail, but Sir Ken Robinson, if you haven't seen Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talks or his videos, I strongly encourage you to do this, right? So his Sir Ken, he's now passed on, but his work has got to be some of the greatest work ever created on the subject of education and creativity. And I strongly encourage you to read his Out of Their Minds book. Paulo Freire's book, I can't recommend. It's super duper dense. But the main ideas are, education happens by creating a learning environment, and then putting people in it and then letting them learn. And he doesn't like the word teach either. It's a transitive thing. It's not about opening someone's head and pouring information in. It's about them cultivating their own learning. And that's the main idea of this. And the last person that I want to talk to, and is also going to be the dedicated, the person that I want to dedicate the Beginner Boost to, and I do every single year, is someone named Aaron Swartz. Now, I'm going to just warn you right now, when I talk about Aaron Swartz, I'm very close to tears every time for the entire time that I talk about him. And I'm going to talk about Aaron, and I'm going to need to take a break, okay? Because Aaron's story is one of the most powerful, most important stories that can be told in modern times. And the only way that I suggest that you hear about the story, I'm not even going to really deeply dive into it, but I do want to show you a little bit of the YouTube video from Aaron Swartz, called "The Internet's Own Boy." Okay, and hey, look at all these great things here. Claire, who's Claire? Internet's Own Boy. All right, so the Internet's Own Boy is free, and I'm just going to tell you, okay, so if there's one thing I can impress upon you in this first hour, it's for you to go watch the Internet's Own Boy from beginning to end. And I mean, and I promise you, it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard for you to get through it. But I think it is one of the most important stories, factual documentaries that you will ever see. And especially if you're young. If you're young, there's just to summarize Aaron's life, he was, I mean, he's just, I don't even want to tarnish it. I just think you need to watch it. Okay. And I want you to, if you need to like vent or discuss, I want you to come to the Discord. Our Discord channel is linked from YouTube and everywhere. Come into our Discord, because you will probably need, a shoulder to lean on after you watch it. Okay, it is very sad. But the life of Aaron Swartz. Aaron's no longer with us, and it actually talks about how he left us and the circumstances that led up to it. And it's very important that you understand that. Okay, so By the way, Aaron Swartz was never actually a hacker. But the most important thing I want you to take out of this is that even though Aaron Swartz at certain times was kind of a jerk, especially when he was a young child, he was fundamentally built to help other people learn. He was naturally curious, and the thing that ultimately did him in is he wanted to make information that was legally free to get. And so he took on the establishment. He single-handedly created entire legislation that got ratified. He actually got it ratified. So, he helped to create RSS. He helped to create the Creative Commons standards at 15. At 15, he stood on the podium. They had to get him a thing with Lawrence Lessig, from Harvard, a Harvard law professor, because he was just so amazing and so ahead of his time and so done with the world that we live in terms of wanting it to change. And he got very impatient. He was like, no, we need to hold people accountable. We need to do things. He invented Markdown with John Gruber. He's just done so many things. By the time he was like 18, he had done more things than so many people have done in much less time. He was also, you have to decide whether he leaked the files. He did not leak files that were not allowed to be leaked. So I'm going to let you make your own take on that. Okay. But there's people who are split on that, right? Yeah. He did not, you have to watch this thing and make your own conclusion. And if you want to have a debate about it in the Discord, I encourage you to do that. Please just be respectful and all of that. But I'm going to dedicate, actually, I don't, it's going to kill my video if I actually watch this, but I want you to take a moment to watch it. If you want to watch like the beginning of the movie during the break, we'll go ahead and take a break, and you can watch the beginning of this documentary, so you can get an idea. You can maybe watch the trailer. Let's actually watch the trailer during the break. How about that? So we'll go ahead and take a break, and we'll watch the trailer, and then you can see about it. But I just want you to know that this, after the conclusion of this first hour, is I've given you 3 specific people who have motivated me to do what I do, and I dedicate the Beginner Boost to the memory of Aaron, and I believe he's one of the most significant humans who have lived in our time, and I think you should understand everything about that. So anyway, and with that, we're gonna go ahead and take a break and just leave it at that. So why should you learn? How should you learn? What kind of learning are we gonna do? That kind of thing. Now, the rest of, I could give you a whole bunch of details about what is the process? What do you mean I need to be an autodidactic learner and all that stuff? Rather than like tell you all of that, we're gonna do it together. Okay, so we're going to do it together, and then you'll see it, and hopefully you'll adopt that practice for yourself. A little bit of a spoiler alert, one of the really obvious qualities of an autodidactic learner is being able to answer their own questions. So we'll conclude with this. If you see me pushing back, and I can be sort of a jerk about this, but I want you to know it's for your own good. Because if you have to ask a question, like, for example, I don't know how many times I've been asked what my stream is about, and it's in the title. And I said, did you read the title? I went, no. And okay, fine. Or literally, I have like just today, I had a pinned message that said the boost starts at 11:11, and somebody in the chat asked, you can probably guess, what time does the boost start? Just a minimal amount of effort to answer the question for yourself would have done that. So I do think we should probably conclude with this, right? So, because Aaron and the rest, it's kind of a dark side, but this world of getting instant responses has, I believe, created sort of a pandemic of intellectual laziness. And what I mean by that is that we are so used to having answers at our fingertips that we're too lazy to even search on Google for that. I mean, And I got to tell you, if there's one thing that annoys me more than anything else, ChatGPT is going to make it even worse. But if you don't even bother to ask ChatGPT, I mean, where does the problem lie, right? So what I'm trying to say here, is that if I or anyone pushes you back, and it's for your own good. Because within a certain tech community, particularly in the tech community, there are a lot of people who will be far less patient with you. So if you're working in person and you're the person who walks over to somebody's cubicle, knocks on the cubicle, and you could have Googled the answer and you just broke their concentration because you wanted to get an answer for some reason. So yeah, if some of you have gotten hit with ads, I forgot to turn the ads off. So that stuff will be RTFM mentality, yeah. So the RTFM, there is another mentality that is people that are annoyed by people who ask questions that could have answered their own. And they will attack, I mean, like really attack, and I'm guilty of this. They will like attack people and push back on them, and they'll say, well, man, you know, all the energy you just spent ripping me a new one, you could have just answered it for me. I said, yeah, but then next time you would have asked again. So now maybe you'll think twice. And it's not that the questions are bad. What's bad is that you were so lazy, you didn't even search minimally for your own answers. And I'm going to tell you right now that it's not always your fault. Because as I said before, with Ken Robinson and Paulo Freire talking about us being told to not ask questions, us being, you know, don't ask questions. Questions are bad. Questions cause people to doubt things. Questions cause people to challenge things. And so questions, the actual act of learning and taking responsibility for your own learning is actually, you're told not to do it. And so what you people all the time, is this going to be on the test? Why would they even ask that thing? I mean, the entire antagonistic relationship that exists in traditional education between an educator, it's educator versus student. All right, can I do something? There's no trust relationship there, right? It's like the students are trying to get away with passing the test, and the teacher's trying to, you know, make sure that they can't get, you know, be owned. And that antagonistic relationship between teacher and student is the polar opposite of a mentor and a Podman, a Jedi and a Podman, a master and an apprentice. And it's the basis of all modern education right now. And the reason our educational system is so broken, and very successful educators were repeating the same thing. What's his name? I forget. There's another guy who came from corporate too as well. But anyway, they're all broken. It's all broken, right? Because, you know, you don't have a trust relationship. The best possible education you could ever get is where everybody trusts each other to not cheat. If you trust each other to not cheat and to cheat, because you're only cheating yourself, right? You're not doing the learning. Okay, you got a certificate, great. And you cheated and you got it. Now what? Right? And the thing that sucks is we actually are putting these people into jobs who have learned how to game the system. I was actually told, I went through a special SAT prep class, and we'll stand after this thing. I went to an SAT prep class, and Mr. Lundquist told me at the beginning of the prep class, we are not going to teach you the content on the test. We're going to teach you how to beat the test. And he like very tongue in cheek, you know, he goes, this test is not this is like a professor who'd become like a high school teacher. He said, this test has no actual relevance to your intelligence. This test is designed, it doesn't matter, you still have to take it. And it's funny because the SAT test has largely been put down, and now a lot of colleges don't even require it anymore because it's finally been realized that the people who own it, who are getting rich off of it, are actually not operating in the best interest of the people that they've been giving it to. And that's College Board, and don't get me started on College Board. It's also the reason AP Computer Science is totally broken. I'll rant on that another day. But so he says, we are going to teach you how to beat the test. Not necessarily, and that's it. So the people who learned how to beat the test, the multiple guess test, which is the SAT, which is supposed to be some measure of your potential, you know, ability to learn and grow and perform at the college level, had no relevance whatsoever. And I always thought that, I mean, because he started with that. He's like, we're going to teach you how to get around this. And you still to this day, you can find, there's so many people out there to try to help you to beat the system, as opposed to helping you learn the skills so that you wouldn't ever have to do that. And then there's other people who know the stuff but fail the test. How many of you are those kind of people? How many of you just like totally freeze up when you try to take a test? Right? There's a lot of us. I'm one of them. Or a whiteboard interview. You have to perform, on the, even if it has nothing to do with your job. These like milestones, or this gatekeeping that happens where you have to go through this broken method of a measurement of your abilities is a part of our society. But we're going to put all of that off. And one of the, I need to talk, we're going to talk more about this next hour about, the format, what am I going to learn and all that stuff. And one of the answers to that question is, am I going to get a certificate? And the answer is no, you're not. You're going to get, hopefully, exposure to things that will lead you down the path of the stuff that you want to learn, and along the path help you learn those things on your own, and we'll learn things together. So it's like, let's learn this stuff together, and you'll have knowledge and skills. And if you don't think that's going to be valuable to you because it's not a piece of paper, go read the 70 different people who are talking about all the jobs they got and all the success that they've got, and all the people who've hired my people and said, oh my God, your person is like amazing. Because why? Because they have created environments for themselves that have produced trust with their potential employers, that prove that they know what they know. And that's really all trust. That's really all employment is about. We're going to talk about that later. Employment is about trust. And it depends on the job. Every job is different. If you want to get a job, you need to create instruments of trust. You need to create whatever that is for that job, so that the person who's going to pay you money for that thing can come to trust you for that. And then you need to build that trust with that person. And every single job is different. Some jobs require a piece of paper to fulfill that trust. Others don't. Sometimes the computer lab is better. We're going to talk about that later. All right, so let's take a break, and we'll put the trailer on. And we're gonna go ahead and put and put the trailer on, and I'm gonna pause the video, and when the trailer is done, we'll come back. I don't know how long the trailer is. How long is the trailer? And we'll go from there. When we come back, we're going to talk about the actual content of the boost, and we're going to go over it so you can make a decision about whether you want to do it or not. But even if you've jumped ahead of all of this stuff to get to that, that's fine. But I did want to at least talk to you about where I'm coming from, because this is not traditional education, right? It's the polar opposite of that. And that means we're going to be doing things that make, I've had college professors, and I mean, I actually told a teacher who was a parent of one of the people that was here, that nobody teaches anyone anything, and they pulled their kid out over it. They were so upset. I had another professor at a university who had her son here, and I changed the curriculum in the middle of the course. In the middle of the course, I changed the curriculum because the direction in technology had changed, and the people didn't. I think it was Java to go, and we changed it in the middle of the course. And she had been so, I don't know, hardened by traditional education. It's like, you can't just change the curriculum in the middle of a course. You can't do that. I said, I just did. And they're like, you can't do that. She pulled her kid out. She's like, that can't possibly be a professional organization. I'm like, this is technology we're talking about. And we'll talk about accreditation later when we get going on. But if you think that any college that has to go through a year-long accreditation program just to get the curriculum changes approved can keep up with the pace of technology today, you are sadly mistaken, because there is no way. And the reason that we have a boost every year is because the content of technology and the entire landscape changes month to month, year to year, and we have to be able to adapt to that. And we're going to talk about what those changes are this year and how we're going to do it, and why we're back to containers and a bunch of things like after the break. So here's a break. Go. Okay, so we are back. We did watch the beginning of the Internet's Own Boy. Please watch it this weekend or sometime. I strongly suggest you do. Anyway. So this is going to be a little boring, but we're going to go through what to do, how to get ready, and help you make the decision about whether you want to continue for the next year or so, however half a year or however long it takes. So I'm just going to be largely reading from the content that I put up there, so you can come back to it. So we go to skillstak.io, skilstak.io, and then you can click on boost or do /boost, and this will tell you the times. So here's the logistics. Here is, it tells you the boost begins. You can see a bunch of other stuff on my calendar as well. I don't always put everything on here, but the boost times will be here. We did think that we were going to actually start this second. I'm going to probably have to change this. At one point I was going to start this second half at 12:30 and have a big old break in between, but I think we're just going to go ahead and just keep going. I'll probably change it. But anyway, this calendar is the place to go if you want to know whether we're having it that week, so you can answer your own question, whether it's coming up or not. I will usually put out some sort of notification in the Discord. The Discord links are in YouTube and they're in Twitch. Please go join the Discord. So that's a bit of homework. Here's the things to put on your list of homework. Go join the Discord. Go to skillstak.io. Introduce yourself if you want in the Discord. Navigate around, find yourself where the questions are going to be asked and stuff like that. And generally speaking, we have one hashtag chat channel that's just random chat. And then we have some sort of topical stuff, but we also have boost questions, and you can find your way in Discord. I mean, you guys don't need instruction on that. That's you can figure that out. So what are you going to need to participate? You need to have a computer, of course. You can have a Windows, Mac, or Linux. If you already know how to do Linux, if you installed Linux, please, that's fine. We'll be using, you may know Linux, but you've not learned the terminal. And this is a good point for me to bring up, that this is specifically for those benefiting from Linux terminal command line skills, right? And we are also specifically focused on fundamentals to start careers in technology. So if you are a hobbyist, and you want to learn Linux, that's great, but a lot of times a lot of questions will come up about the content and like, for example, Arch Linux versus Ubuntu or Red Hat. The reason that we are going to learn Ubuntu versus Arch is because the careers that use technology are fundamentally going to be the ones where when we have to pick one, right, because we can't learn them all, we're going to pick the one that's going to be most likely to be used on the job. And so that your skills are relevant. Now, I'm not saying that Arch is bad in that case, or whatever. And people are always asking, well, why aren't you teaching us to put Linux on hardware? The single greatest thing that I struggle with since I've been starting to do this online like this is how to get you Linux. And there's 3 ways to get Linux. But I'm going to cut to the chase, and I'll just tell you the main one that we're going to do. So this year, we're going to install something called Podman Desktop. And so if you have a computer, the first thing you need to do is go figure out, you can go search for Podman Desktop, okay? And you can follow the instructions on how to install this. Everybody's different. I have clicked on, so the install process, if you have any problem with it at all, we're in the Discord free on this. This is not something that I can actually do in front of you very easily. Because I've already got it installed, and it does affect the underlying operating system. So why Podman Desktop? Podman Desktop is the way to run something called containers, which we'll talk about on Saturday this week. So that just a reminder, just because we started today doesn't mean we're not going to be off on Saturday. So Saturday is going to be the first day we're going to actually be on the terminal doing stuff in Podman Desktop. So between now and Saturday, if you haven't had it by then, you should be downloading and installing Podman Desktop on your computer. Preferably a Windows machine or a Mac machine. I get crap about this all the time. People are like, why are you only focused on Windows or Mac? How can we even trust you? You're not running Linux on the desktop. The reason for that is because 90% of the jobs in the world right now do not let you put Linux on your desktop, including my current job, which is for a very well-paying, multinational corporation, which shall not be named. Please do not dox where I work if you know. It's very important to me that you don't do that. And I just want to say that you're gonna even if you don't like Mac or Windows, which is fine. You have Linux purists who don't want it. I absolutely don't like or use Linux Desktop anymore. I use Linux Desktop on my machine at work for more than 15 years, and that's why I don't like it. Most recently, I used Pop! OS and it blew up. I mean, literally blew up. It just stopped working one day, and I had to use the terminal to go in and restore my system and a whole bunch of stuff. So I hate that Windows and Mac are also kind of flaky too, but Linux Desktop is like, and everyone's always like, well, it's never been bad for me. Okay, fine, but you're not doing the same things I am. So even if you want to learn Linux on the desktop, and I think you should, and when we do Home Lab and Knit, one of the things we're gonna go through in that is we're gonna take an old laptop and we're going to install Linux on that old laptop and breathe new life into it. And we're going to do things like how to set up, how to burn a USB stick to put Linux on that. I'm going to tell you right now, installing Linux on hardware is not included in this boost. This boost is focused on using a Linux terminal, specifically the command line, in the fastest way that you can get Linux on your local laptop. That means you can take it on the airplane with you or on the school bus, and you don't have to have internet access, which is why we don't use the cloud solution, because those depend on the internet, and sometimes you don't have the internet. So getting a container engine, which is what Podman is. A container is just kind of like a miniature machine, but not really, right? It would be a virtual machine, which we'll talk about that on Saturday. But so the goal here is to get Podman Desktop installed on Windows or Mac and working. Right now, when you install it on Windows, it may or may not ask you to go through the steps to install WSL2. And if it does, go ahead and do that. And people will have varying experiences with this. It's really not worth our time right now to go through every individual hurdle that you might hit, which is why the Discord is there. Okay, so I want everybody to, if you want to know why we're going with Podman, people might know Docker Desktop. Why are we not using Docker Desktop? I'll answer that question really quickly. 2 years ago, we used Docker Desktop. I mean, if you insist on using Docker Desktop, you can. Docker Desktop was the original, and Docker is the original container engine company that has since gotten very, 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 very proprietary in multiple ways, and they have burned so many bridges at this point. Nobody wants to use it, and the entire industry is just like fleeing Docker as fast as they can. And they tried to suddenly charge all these huge corporations for every single person that had ever used free Docker Desktop, which was never free. It's not free in open source software at all. It's 100% proprietary software. So if you are a Linux and an open source software kind of proponent, putting Docker on your desktop is the worst thing you want to do. Right? Podman, on the other hand, even though it's controlled by Red Hat, is still open source software. It actually uses the same technology under the hood. It uses something called QEMU, which is an emulator of a machine, essentially. One of the best things about QEMU is that it can emulate things that different hardware even, and we'll get into what that means. But just know that QEMU and the technologies related to that are really the future. And if you look at like Amazon is running, QEMU and KVM. KVM is the virtualization, which we'll talk about next week or on Saturday. But that's what they run, right? So Amazon, Azure, any of the big companies that are doing any kind of containerization to deploy applications to the world, which we'll talk about more later, but they're using this technology, right? And Podman is fundamentally built on that same technology. It's just wrapped up in a nice, pretty gooey package. And let's actually go ahead and show that really quick. We're going to be doing more on this on Saturday, hopefully, but back to using containers. Yes. We're not using VirtualBox. Okay, so the question about whether we're using VirtualBox. So I didn't want to talk about this today, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So in a nutshell, we're going to talk about this on Saturday, but the difference between a virtual machine and a container is a virtual machine is actually a virtual machine, and a container is kind of a pseudo in between that, and you can understand the difference. So if you don't want to know the difference between those two right now, we're going to talk about the difference on Saturday. But if you're asking questions because you did this boost before, last year we installed VMware and we created a virtual machine. And that was the standard direction, and that direction has changed. We are not going to install a virtual machine this year. And virtual machines are now going to be covered in Home Lab Init, and we will talk about KVM, which is a virtual machine engine that I prefer, and I use that on Kubernetes, and for my machines back here and stuff like that. But if you that all just went over your head, that's fine. Okay. Oh my God, did you really? So yeah, that's what I had. Is exactly what I had. Somebody else had a blue screen of death. So here's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. Another reason that we are going with the containerization thing is because so many Macs out there are using M1. They're using a different chip. It's an ARM chip. And the reason that we're using Docker Desktop is because it uses Kimu, which is an emulator. Like I said, it does not mind being on a newer Mac versus an old Intel Mac. So the idea with containers in general is to decouple, essentially all the stuff from a computer operating system from the host machine, and to put them into a container engine so you can have multiple of them running at one time. And let me just give you an overview. That we're going to do more of this on Saturday, but this is why we're doing this. In fact, I'm not going to show it to you yet. You're going to have to come in on Saturday because we got to get through this. So if you want to see Podman in action, come back on Saturday because we got to get through what else we're going to cover. Okay. So, but if you want to be working on something while I'm talking, start installing Podman Desktop. Okay. That's going to be the basis of it. Now, to be fair, last time we did this 2 years ago, which you can actually go watch the boost from 2 years ago if you want, and it's going to be essentially the same thing. And we used Docker Desktop back then, and Podman has almost identical commands, but some of them are a little bit different. I'm going to actually probably trip up a few times during this, which will be good for me. So go ahead and get it for Windows or Mac and get it installed. It's super important that you get this working because everything depends on this. Every single thing we do for the rest of the entire time is going to depend on running a terminal that's connected to a container that's running Linux. All right. And that is going to be the new, that's going to be what we're going to be doing. All right. So let's go through the rest of the overview. You probably want to have a Windows or Mac of 4-core, 8 gigs of RAM, 100 gigabytes of free. I mean, you really don't need a huge machine, but this will help you. These original requirements were made for virtual machines, so you could probably get away with even less than that because we're using containers, which are even tinier than a virtual machine, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a machine that runs inside of another machine, but a container is lighter than that even, right? The difference between a container and a virtual machine is that a container reuses some of the resources from the host machine, and a virtual machine does not. It permanently allocates more or less those resources to run on the host machine, and then the host can't use them for anything else. Okay, so that's the fundamental. I mean, I'm really, really paraphrasing, but that's the fundamental difference between containers and virtual machines. Thank you for the sub. So why every year? We do the boost every year because this stuff changes. I do want to tell you about the surfer analogy. Surfer requires a well-developed ability to check the ocean's minor undulations in the distance and predict the right time when the crest is going to come for the wave. And you paddle hard and you catch the wave and you're good to go, right? You paddle too early, you miss the wave. You paddle too late, you miss the wave. You paddle right on time, you can catch that wave. And then catching the wave means, employed skills and success in the tech industry. And that is what you have to get good at doing. We're going to talk extensively about that at the end of the boost. We're going to talk about how to get a job, how to create a professional learning network. We're going to talk about how to prepare a resume. We're going to talk about how to shop yourself around and make friends and network and all of that. And that is going to be at the end. Okay, so those are all things. The fundamental idea of the boost is to give you a shove. It's not to do everything. It's to get you going in the right direction so that you can then go learn all the stuff on your own. So there are some things we're going to do exhaustively. Bash comes to mind, Bash scripting, but there are other things that we will not be going into exhaustively, right? And that is because, based on last hour we were just talking, you are responsible for the learning. So it's more important that you know what to learn so that you can guide your own learning, build your own learning path, and then go from there. Okay, so the boost is not a course. Start thinking like a hacker. Most people are using the old broken idea of learning. What do hackers do? Hackers are always figuring out how something works. How does this work? They have to constantly teach themselves. There's nobody who teaches somebody how to hack. I mean, sometimes, but 0 days and stuff, it's all about discovery. It's about the scientific method. And then here is the list. This is the main list I want to cover with you. We're going to go over this list pretty quickly. And then I'll cover the first part of the list as much as I can. So this is something that we're going to return to before we're going to close on this, hopefully today. We're going to close on this. So we have about 35 minutes. I want to close on what it means to do the RWX way. What does it specifically mean, learning to learn, right? And what was it that Aaron Swartz did that made him so successful, right? And basically he did this. He followed the RWX method, which we'll talk about. We're going to close with that today. But these are the other kind of high bulleted pointed items that if these interest you or this is the kind of direction you want to go, we're going to install terminal applications, Podman, Ubuntu, Linux containers, know the difference between a container and a virtual machine, navigate and manage files from the command line. So the command line is this thing. So, you can do everything from running fishies to, searching the internet. Who was Aaron Swartz? I never spell his name right. I feel so bad about that. I should probably learn it. There we go. So we're searching the internet from the command line, and we're getting answers much faster than we ever would with a graphic browser. You're going to learn how to do that kind of thing. So that's the terminal. Manage processes from the command line, kill them, run them. Edit text, which is like, so let's say I want to manage all my notes that I've been taking. You want to see my personal training plan. Here's how we edit this. Here's my personal training plan. I'm editing all this file. And then this ends up on my Zettelkasten, RWX, Rob, .github./z, and you can go to indexed, later position updates, and you could see my personal training plan here and see all these nice, pretty notes that you have. Okay, we're going to do that on Saturday. We're going to talk about Markdown, but Saturday or next week, I don't know, but we're going to do Markdown. We'll learn that format for taking notes and the method for doing that. But here you can see how I made this nice, happy web page from the command line. Okay, so that's an example of that. We're going to take, as I said, take efficient searchable notes with Markdown and MakeDocs. So I'm using MakeDocs right now. We may or may not use MakeDocs, but you can do things like this. You could search for, I think I have Swartz on here. I don't have him on here. I don't think I have him written down here. Nope. Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's down there. So it's basically, how do you make your own notes searchable? How do you put them on the internet? And that thing, work with structured data. So as you saw with the positive things, structured data, let me give you an example of what structured data is. So nice comments. This is structured data, right? It's data in an organized fashion that can be parsed and reused and put into a database. We're not going to get into seriously what a database is and the technology for databases, but we will introduce what they are and how structured data is. It's really strange how people do not teach structured data. I actually kind of concerns me sometimes because it's like such an important part of being a technologist, but I don't know anybody who's teaching JSON or TOML or YAML or anything. But it's like, if you want to do anything in the world of technology, you have to know these things today. So we'll go into what that means and how you can use it to manage your own data and knowledge, even if it's not something that you necessarily want to make into an application. Understanding how the internet actually works. This is the only networking we're going to do, right? We're going to talk about what does SKILSTAK IO, right? And what does SKILSTAK IO actually mean? What does this number actually mean? What does it point to? What's the internet v6? How do I make my own website? How do I have a site that's got its own name? How do I do my own email addresses and stuff? how the internet works, how all those packets fly around the internet. We may actually talk about how to scan a machine to see if it's got a vulnerability, which that leads into hacking. But that's it. We're not going to, people that do networking, there's a lot of people that go very deeply into networking. People get entire jobs in networking. Cisco's engineers, it's like one of the most highly paid jobs out there. And it's just, focused in networking and how setting up networks for companies. And it's a very, very big responsibility, and therefore it pays a lot. But if you want to go down that route, there's a lot of great people that you can watch and learn from. Save sources to get in GitHub. So as you've seen me say already, let me go back to my, where did I put it? On my desktop, Docker desktop. So we're going to use GitHub. And if you want to go out there and follow me right now, you can see, okay, here, I'll show you something. Actually, let's do this. So you see here up here, see where it says rwxrob/skillstack right here? That's because the source code for this entire page is saved on a service called GitHub. And you can click right here. You can actually go edit it. Here's the code, right? You can go edit it and make a change to it. This is a service called Git. And it's a service called GitHub, which sponsors source code management in Git. We're going to learn that. That's one of the things that we're actually going to, yes, there's going to be VODs. They're going to be YouTube. And they'll be chaptered. So you can, this is something you can go to. I would appreciate it if you would star it, because it does make it a little bit visible to people. So you want to come over here and click on the star there. That will help the visibility improve, so people will find the content here and be able to get help from it. But if you just click on this, it'll take you to this. You will be getting, if you want to jump ahead and do some homework, you go create yourself a GitHub account. The only consideration is I personally would suggest you keep your name, relatively short and sweet. It's going to be there forever. It's going to become one of your main professional, profiles out there. So please give it some time. I know I put a silly picture of myself here. I'd appreciate it, a like as well here. This just shows you activity as it's been, your commits, people that are sponsoring me, and it's fun. We're going to talk about Git and GitHub and what's that versus GitLab and all that. That's one of the things we're going to cover. And where are we? I'm like completely off track now. I got to go back to, okay, here we go. So that we got to do that, because that's where we're going to take our notes, right? We're going to take our notes in GitHub and Git, and then you'll have them available to search. You can make it private if you don't want to share it with everybody else. In fact, I suggest that you not make anything that you're doing for learning public. And we'll talk about that later about why, but the primary reason is because it will go into your professional profile. And there is a bunch of AI I happen to know firsthand from a vice president of a company that shall not be named, that was a parent of one of my students, that they regularly pay for high-end AI services that mine potential leads from GitHub. And they create very succinct lists of people that they make offers to just from their GitHub profiles. So it's very important that you curate. It's way more important than LinkedIn. It's very, very important that you curate your content on GitHub and your participation. And in fact, I would suggest that it might be the single most important public-facing tool for producing trust, even if you're a hacker or you're in operations. So we're going to spend some time on why that is, why it's actually more important for you to have a strong GitHub profile than even a website, and we'll go through that. Save shell scripts in Bash and Ash, what that means. So yeah, it was an absolute mess. You deleted. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic, Script Alchemist. I'm glad you did that. Hopefully that will work out for you. So as you can see, here's some stuff. Let's go find some scripts. So I have some scripts here. I have all these scripts that do different things. Lorem's a fun one. Lorem. I don't know. Okay, so there we go. Let's do like 10 lines of lorem ipsum. You guys know about lorem? Lorem ipsum. So lorem ipsum is just like I just want random text, right? So we will look at lorem. It's a script. So this is a script that just runs out to the internet. It uses curl. It grabs down some stuff, and it's just a one-liner, right? Oh, thank you for the sub. And let's look at some other fun things. I mean, there's just all kinds of things. You want to see the fishies program? Here's the fishies script. Okay, so you're going to be, that's a Perl script. We're going to talk about the different scripting languages, and we're going to get to that in a second. But let's talk about, and we will learn a little Perl, by the way, this year. We've never done that before. Let's see. I'm trying to find some fun ones. Oh, Neo. How about that? There's a fun one. Right? We're going to learn how to write, useless things as well as useful things. Let's see. What else can we do that's fun? I mean, I have scripts for everything. So, I mean, I really do. Scripts for everything. So we're going to talk about the Unix method, why it's nice to write a one-off script to just do the little thing that you want to do, whether it be add, numbers together, like, 10 plus whatever, and to do those kind of things in line. Here's a fun one. So let's say you're editing a blog. Let's say I'm doing my weight, right? And I need to change some things here in my weight goals, right? So this is some stuff about my cycling. Let's say I wanted to do do some pretty hard math. So let's say 20 times 1.67, right? And I can do scale equals 2, and I can actually replace that with the number. Bang, bang, and I send that to BC, and it does the calculation, and it puts the number there. Okay, I just used a Unix filter in the middle of an edit session, and that workflow is very common. It's also not very well known, even among. Thank you for the subs. It's also not very well known among people who profess to be Linux users. They have no idea what I just did. And this is why we're going to spend a lot of time, not just writing scripts and talking about the different shell programming languages out there, but we're also going to talk about the Unix philosophy. What's a filter? I just used a filter there. And what is Unix versus Linux? How all of these things go together. And I don't know if that's going to be the first thing or one of the latter things. I've had a hard time trying to place where we should have that conversation, but I think that this conversation is most important to have as we start doing scripting, because the scripting is where, the real power is. This is going to separate you from being just a regular Linux user out there who uses VS Code for everything to being a real power user, a power command line user. Even if you're using VS Code, you pull up a terminal instead, and you can use filters and shell scripts and write your own things. And you're going to be able to whip together scripts that are going to do things that are just going to blow people's socks off, because that's the magic of it. And so many, technologists today who are being paid a lot still don't know how to do this stuff. They never learned it because it's not taught anywhere. It's very hard to learn. It's been very much handed down from the graybeards, as they say. To me, I'm ultimately grateful to Joey and the rest who told me. I said, man, I wish I could have a Solaris machine at home. And they're like, well, there's always Linux. If it hadn't been that somebody had taken pity on me and showed me that thing, I would never know it today. So there are more books and stuff about it, but in general, it's not taught. So we're going to do that, right? We're going to go over those kinds of things. And then you can decide if you want to use a command line for everything or not. And there's different advantages versus command line versus GUI. But this boost is fundamentally about the terminal command line. Customizing your bash profile and environment. That's so you can get all this fancy stuff down here that show you where you are, what machine you're on, and that kind of thing. What GitHub repo I'm in, how to customize that. We're going to go through your bash RC file, and we're going to go through it line by line and help you create your own bash RC file. The reason we have to learn how to script first is before we do all of these customizations is because you'll have no idea what this code does. Right. And so this is actually one of the dilemmas I've had ever since I've started beginning to do this stuff. Immediately people want a really nice environment, and they can't, because they're like, I don't have a nice environment to use because I need to customize it. And it's been a long tradition to steal somebody else's bash RC profile or things like that and not really question it and just use it. But and then over time, and I mean, 5-10 years, come to understand what's actually in it. And we're going to attempt to overcome that hurdle by teaching you bash first And then you can decipher what's in those bashrc files, so that, as everybody does, everybody's a tradition on the internet to have a .files repo, right? It's like kind of a rite of passage that you have. Whoops, not bot dot. You have a .files repo. Some people call it .files. Some people call it dot. If you search just for .files on GitHub, and all of GitHub, watch how many you'll see. There's like, look at them, .files, 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 right? And you can go into these people's .files, and their Z shell. We'll talk about that. And once you understand Bash and shell, you can now make informed decisions about what pieces of somebody else's file you want to cut and paste into your profile. And that's a very long-standing tradition in the Unix and Linux world, is this sharing of, ooh, that's a cool little trick, right? And you're never really done. Right? There's always something that you can modify to make it a little bit better. Some people are really obsessed with very, very big, command line prompts. We're going to talk about the science behind a big distracting prompt versus a minimal prompt, and what is it, $ versus hashtag. We're going to talk about all that. Okay. So that's covered in that. We're going to talk about customized Vim text editing sessions. As you see me edit text several times today already. You've seen how, the number one thing I get when it comes to editing text is people want to see how come sometimes like my other stuff is not working. This is something, like, why does it do that? They want to, you see how it does the smart quotes there? They want to know what's that about. Should I use, one line or not? And we may, if you ask nice, I might teach you how to use my KN tool, which that's gotten renamed to KN. I'll talk about that later. That when we talk about markdown and note taking, we're going to talk about the Zettelkasten method, the pros and the cons of it, and just in general how to take notes. And that's one of the first things that we're going to do on Saturday. Now the problem is you can't really start doing that until you know how to edit files. So that editing files is going to be one of the very, very, very first things. We got to learn how to navigate the command line first, and then we're going to learn how to edit files, right? And then we'll learn Bash. So, but even before that, we're going to all get a GitHub repo on Saturday, and we're going to go to GitHub, and we're going to use GitHub to use a graphic editor so you can start taking notes immediately. And then after that, in fact, we might have time to start that tonight. And then after that, then we can go to the next step, which is to be able to edit those notes from the command line. And that's really going to be painful at first, because Vim is not easy to learn. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's very hard to learn, but so is the violin, but once you learn it, you can make fantastic music with it once you've actually learned how to play it. So many people don't spend the time to do it though, but and we'll talk about why and all that. Managing terminal windows and screen in Tmux. So one of the first problems that happened is that, all right, so let's say, I don't know, let's say I'm editing a note. It's like my last entry about my weight and stuff that I've been talking about. And I want to look up what Tadej Pogacar, what his weight is. So here I'm doing a select, and I'm going to go open another window, and I'm going to go search for his weight, and I'm pasting without using the mouse. And I'm going to go look for his weight from the command line without going to a thing. And I can see right here that 56 seconds. Let's see. Let's go see if he's got this one might have it. Let's go try this one. So let's see. Let's say 1 day races, GC time trial. Does it have his weight? Well, let's go do a search here for it. Wait, there it is. Weight 66 kilograms. How long did it take me to get that answer? Right? And then I can jump back to this other thing. I could actually copy that if I wanted to. I could copy it right here. Watch, I can copy this whole line. Take that whole line right there and just paste it right in. Push it right here. And I can just say boom, and I paste. Whoops. Sorry, I did it wrong. Damn it. I'm going to make a mistake because I'm doing this live. That's just how it happens. I emptied out my paste buffer. That's bad. I just did it again. There we go. So there we got the weight, and I can just cut and paste it between. You see, I didn't use the mouse at all. Okay. So how did I do that? I'm using a thing called Tmux. I can say up here, I can say editing. You can see, change the name here or whatever. I didn't even do it right. Editing. and that, okay. So then I can close this out and I can go over here if I wanted to have fishies just to make me happy. Maybe I want to have a calendar open, and I can go back and forth between the different things without even really thinking about it, because it's become second nature over the time. And close them down or shut them down when you don't need them, and boom. And so then, you're cutting and pasting back and forth as easily as you would, actually much easier than I would with a mouse. And I'm just staying in the terminal. Okay, so that is essential. So having what's called a multiplexer like Screen or TMUX is going to be essential, and you're going to need to configure your TMUX to do that. Now, if you wanted to do something, oops, that was weird. So if you want to, you can actually do stuff like this. So see promo start. Yeah, if you want to, you can even do fun things like this. Like in the upper corner, you can put a Pomodoro timer. It counts down. That's actually happening in my terminal. That's not a graphic thing. That's actually happening in my terminal. The Pomo stop, and if you want the Pomo thing, I can kind of show you how to add that. You can also split screens. You can look up the time. You can have you can go through all your different ones. There's my buffer. You can split the screen in half if you want to, so you can have things open. You could like run fishies down here while you're doing something up here, like banner, hello, I don't know. You can do whatever. You can do Neo up here, and if you wanted to do something useless, right? But the point is that you have total command of your screen real estate, and you can go back and forth and could do all those kind of things. No, the fishy script. If you do bang fishies, exclamation point fishies, it'll go show you. It's an ancient Perl script that's been customized for me, but you can go look it up and make it yourself if you want. Yeah. Oh wow, nice. So you can write save shell strips. We did that. Vim, Termux, Team Termux. I say that. By the way, TMUX lets you share a terminal session with others if they're on the same machine, which is kind of cool. And that is I used to use that all the time to do remote editing sessions with people. TMUX will also stay up when even if you disconnect, and there's lots of reasons to learn it besides just screen management. Do effective research from the command line. You've seen me do that. You've seen me do a lot of searches from the command line. We'll talk about how to do that. This is something new. So I want to talk about this a bit before we've got about 5-10 minutes left. So this is something we tried to do Go coding last year, and a lot of people really liked it, but we started to top out on the amount of Go content that I could do because it was really high end when we started doing concurrency and stuff like that. So this year we're going to try something that we've never done before. We're going to actually do a basic hello world, possibly asynchronous hello world. That means two things happening at once. And we're going to write the same code in Perl and Python, possibly Ruby, and C, Go, and Rust. Now, I think I actually edited this, and I don't think I've saved my changes yet. Actually, I'm pretty sure I didn't. I think I already changed that, and it's not showing up. I need to save my changes. Yeah, it didn't change my. I've changed that one. Let me go. Let me just look at something here. Ed Phil's fight. Oh no, it's in README here. Yeah, we changed it. Okay, so let me go off this instead. So sample little coding in Perl, Python, C, Go. We decided to get rid of some of those other languages. And I have nothing against Rust. Honest, I'm got a wide reputation as a Rust hater. I actually do hate Rust, but I still think it's necessary for something. But we decided last week that we were going to chop the number of languages down to Perl, Python, 2 interpreted languages, and 2 compiled languages, C and Go. We're not going to learn enough of those languages to really do anything, but we will set up those languages so that you can then start practicing using them, and you can then take it and run with it and do whatever you want with it. Yeah, you're using TMUX to share with your friend on the Arch exam. Nice. Fish script, if you just do fishies, if somebody put fishies in the chat, exclamation point fishies. Here, I'll do it. Yeah, if you want the fishies. Everybody wants the fishies now. Okay, so we're gonna do all of them. There's so many fun things you can put on the terminal besides the fishies. Yeah, there's tons and tons of fun terminal things. There you go. Okay, so we're going to understand the basics of Dockerfile and how to use one. So this is another thing that's new. We haven't ever done this before. And so the Docker file itself is the file that creates a container or defines how a container is organized. I'm a little leery of this bullet point, but we're going to attempt to cover that. I don't know if it's going to. We're only going to spend 1 week, which is 2 hours tops on it, which is not going to be enough to cover containers, but that is enough to cover what a Docker file is and how to use it to create a container. So this will include a conversation about containers and stuff like that. We talked about knowing the difference between a container and a virtual machine. That's going to be probably next week, if not the week after that. And then just enough web development to create a personal profile page. I had to put that in there because a lot of people want to do web development, and I have nothing against web developers and people who want to do web development. That's how I got started, actually. But the point is that we are not going to learn React or any of the APIs. We're just going to learn basic HTML, basic CSS, and basic JavaScript without any frameworks, as God intended, frankly. And then God being Tim Berners-Lee, I guess. And then we're going to do the rest. I mean, so then you can embellish it. You can take it wherever you want to after that. Specifically, the stuff that we learn for web development, I will show you where to go to learn it properly, like W3 and where to go to follow on the stuff where you can learn it from the specifications themselves, not necessarily somebody's interpretation of it. And then you can decide how much you want to bend and twist that into something else. I believe strongly that RTFM, that you should go to the specifications and not be afraid of them and learn to read them, or learn to read the man pages, which is manual pages, which come on Unix, in order to get the source of truth on that, even if they're more dense than what you like. Watching some watered down video that may or may not be accurate is generally a bad idea, and I'm going to strongly encourage you to have the courage to actually learn these technologies from their specifications, and then to do your own note taking and your own digestion and of that technology into whatever you want, and frankly to kind of own the idea of writing your own textbooks, what I call code books a lot of time, and we'll use GitHub for that. And that way you're producing your own content. You're not becoming dependent. And this gets back to the learning to learn thing, which is good because we are going to finish on this, the Art of X method. And I'll come back to that after we finish this bullet list. The Art of X method of learning to learn and what it means to write down what it is you learn and create your own textbooks. Just learn enough web development, network and foster professional learning network. What that means, we talked about that. I mentioned it before. You can call it a personal learning network, professional learning network, a PLN. I mean, if you're an educator, educators have been talking about PLNs forever. They're like, oh, have you got a PLN? I mean, you can pay $500 to go to a seminar to have somebody sit down in a room and tell you that you need to network and build a professional learning network. I've seen that. I've actually seen that, and I'm like, okay. And there's I once full disclosure. I used to be really obsessed with virtual worlds. I actually started a company called EdTech Retreat that brought teachers into the virtual world to network, and I was actually asked to give presentations and to run things at different conferences and stuff. And I won't get into it, but one of the main things was we would have to tell these teachers that, you need to create opportunities to come share what you know with other teachers so that you can talk with each other and build a professional learning network. And we would literally make a gaming world simulation, which you can go see the pictures of it. We even paid an architect to design it for us, a couple grand actually. And then I built it, and we would all us teachers and stuff would come around a little campfire, and we would share knowledge and stuff, and with frustration. I remember one specific time a woman started crying because she was so frustrated because she couldn't get the funds to help teach her group in a state, I won't say which, that was not getting any funding at all. And I will never ever forget going to ISTE in Boulder, Colorado, and seeing that same person, that same educator, with her entire class that she had been able to grant and fund and get them all there, and to actually present about the success that they had to learning technology. So she went from being somebody who was crying and depressed around a campfire in a virtual world that we had created for the purposes of helping us all network with one another in a non-threatening environment. And in that, she went from that to being bolstered and motivated to being extremely successful in presenting with those same kids that she had got grant money for. It was a huge success. It's not the kind of thing that I'm going to list on a resume someplace, but that has always stuck with me because that's what it's about. It's about sharing. It's about learning. It's about motivating one another through our failures and non-hoarding. That's what it's about. And then the last topic I have listed here is not knowing how to certify and when. So it's really hard for me not to get pulled into this topic like very deeply right now. The short answer, if you actually want to jump into it right away, there's an hour-long video with visual aids and everything about should I certify on my YouTube channel. And the short answer is yes and no, right? It depends on the job. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But we will talk about what certifications to get. There are a lot of other great streamers out there who Tanis comes to mind, HET_TANIS. He has several certifications. And we can debate the merits of certifying or not for a specific career. And speaking of careers, before we jump into the RWX method, I want to summarize the careers that are involved. Okay, so if you want to, I talked earlier when we started about the here it comes. Okay, I talked about the careers, and I want to talk very specifically about the career landscape for those of you that are seeking jobs, or maybe to upskill or to get better jobs. What we won't learn. I just got a raise, by the way. And so I'm just going to happy to announce that. How to install Linux on hardware, how to use Linux graphic user interfaces, this stuff in window managers. So we're not going to do anything Linux graphics, and we're going to install Linux. Now, I didn't know anything about Kubernetes when I got this job, by the way. That's why I had to mention it. Because I redeploying things, and I just redeployed a whole daemon set and stuff. I'm with you, people. I'm with you. I am right there. I got stuff to learn. I got stuff to get better at. So how to install Linux on hardware. One of the reasons that I actually I've enjoyed having a real rock solid tech job, and not to mention that that I'm doing this seriously, I'm not a dancing monkey, who's going to do what's going to give me the most views and the most money. I'm already got that covered, right? I mean, I appreciate your support, of course, but I'm not. You can always know that I'm going to give you the straight scoop from where I'm sitting, because I'm not being motivated by what you think, what you're going to click like on, right? And what you're going to pay me for. I'm motivated sincerely by what I believe is the best thing. And that changes all the time, but I just want you to know that about myself. Yeah. So targeted careers. Yeah. If you were doing art. So here are the careers. Okay. So if any of these jobs sounds like the kind of job you want to do, and I've mentored a lot of people who have left SKILSTAK at very good terms, who have said, I am so glad I spent time with you, because now I know I never, ever, ever want to be a coder. I remember one guy in particular is like, I just love technology so much. Turns out he wants to be a sales guy in tech. He's really, really charismatic, really, really articulate, great communicator, absolutely hated to code. And he wanted the hacker culture and everything and all of that. He was attracted to it. But he realized while he was there that he really didn't like to code at all. And so his direction became to be digesting enough of technology to understand it and put it into terms for other people, and to represent different technologies and to sell them to people without getting into the nitty-gritty of writing code every day. I mean, he knew how to code, he just didn't want to do it, right? So sometimes Yeah. So sometimes the career choice that you make from this might, it might inform what you decide to do. My wife, for example, taught herself how to code in C to make a robotics extension to some of her art. She hated it. She absolutely hated it. She's like, why are all the tutorials on YouTube so bad for C coding? And she was just like going off, and I was like, oh, yep, yep, yep. But she figured it out, and, but she hated it. She absolutely hated it. So it's not about capability. It's about finding your way, finding your path, and what it is you want to do. So let's talk about that. And then we'll talk about the artifacts and method, and then we'll be done, I promise. Okay, so we have here security analyst or hacker. The reason this is number one, and there is a site that's listed here. If you go to this website right here, this is your homework, okay? I'm going to give you some homework. Oops, what am I doing? I'm making mistake. I don't know how to do this on Windows very well. Let me try. I think you can just click it. Is it the Windows key or is it Control key? I don't remember which one. Why don't I just cut and paste it? Why don't I just do that? I don't know. There's every terminal emulator is a little bit different, so that's why I'm having trouble here. Okay, so, or you can just go to bls.gov. Yeah, bls.gov/OOH for computer information technology. So this breaks down all the information technology careers. This is a site that I suggest you spend a long time here just studying it. The reason I like this one versus, Indeed or some of these job posting places, which are fine too, is that this is actually being funded by the government to decide what careers are out there without any, motivation. So it has pluses and minuses. It does mean that it lags behind other resources a little bit. It's not the most cutting edge. They didn't even really have a term for AI in here at all until like last year. It's kind of informative to follow this thing year to year and see how it changes. But the reason that I'm showing you, is it Control? The reason that I wanted to show you this is that you see these numbers over here? Look at these numbers. Network architect, median pay, right? One of the friends of mine that I helped mentor got a starting salary, coding and go, for $100,000 a year, and I'm not kidding. And tech jobs pay well. Sometimes I'll say, if you don't know what you want to do in life, learn how to do a tech job, and do that and make more money while you figure out what you want to do. And then you don't have to do it if you don't want to later. It's better than waiting tables or something, right? Or driving Uber. Get yourself started in a tech career, and if it turns out you hate it, you'll be that much farther ahead in deciding what it is you do want to do. You do need a BA. You do, unfortunately. You do. I'm back and forth on that, and these days I think you do need one. Because there's just so much gatekeeping. It's the reason you need the BA is to get past HR. There's a lot of people that filter out HR based on that. I don't like that that's true. You can do there's actually Adam Ruin's Education. He does a whole video on that. That they make people you can break the system. You can go to WGU or someplace like that and get an online degree that's accredited by the same accreditation organization as Stanford, and then you can bypass the system and get a degree for $6,000. So if you want to know more about that, go watch Adam Ruin's Education, where the conclusion is this: that people who get a degree make 30% more at every stage of their careers, get more jobs more easily. We actually went on a field trip to Bosch Solar Energy before they moved out of this area, and they have a criteria. They won't even look at people who don't have a degree. So unfortunately, it is still a filter, but they don't care about the degree. They don't care where it's from. You can get a community college degree. They don't care. You just have to have the degree, right? So unfortunately, that's still true. I hate saying that. And if you've watched me for the last 5 years or so, you know that at times I'm saying you do not need that. In fact, several big Silicon Valley companies came together, signed an affidavit that said, we do not require degrees. IBM made a big deal about saying we do not require degrees, but we require the equivalent experience and also certificates. So you can, a lot of hackers get around this, right? And by, as I've said, education, if you meet the right person and to get the job, that you're going to get the job, right? If you meet the right person, you're going to bypass the HR process entirely, and you're going to end up getting a job, and HR will just become a nuisance. But occasionally people will say, no, you need. I still think you should go to community college and get a base degree just to have the piece of paper, just to participate. But as I said, the objective evidence on this topic says that the degree doesn't matter, and the amount of money you paid for the degree doesn't matter. You just have to have one. Okay, so I have a Russian degree, by the way, right? And I've got a very well-paying job in technology. So let's keep going here. So the one I wanted to talk to you about is this one. So when you look at some of these things, computer information research scientists, the Timberley God, I don't remember. How about a diploma from a community college? Yes, absolutely. A community college diploma counts. It absolutely does count. And in fact, the YouTube video Adam Ruins Education specifically recommends in the end getting a degree, but getting one from a community college or from something like that. Information security analyst. Let me show you this one. All right, this is the one that I have. I consider going for an information security analyst a lot because I like finding problems and calling them out. When I found out that security analysts spend 50% of their time writing reports, I wasn't as into it as much. But this is the fastest growing tech career, and I would suggest it's the fastest growing career in the entire site. And I have not found any other site that is faster than this one. Thank God. Community college. And then I have years of experience already. With developer, bachelor's degree. You can do that. Yeah. I don't know about that. So, by the way, I have nothing to do with this organization I'm going to tell you about. But if you're an American, I would strongly consider looking at, if you're going to get into cybersecurity. I was very skeptical when I looked at this university. I had a person I was mentoring, had their mom bring it to my attention, and I went into it like, oh no, this is going to suck. And I actually found their material to not be so horrible. But the computer science program is kind of bad, but their program to get into cybersecurity is pretty good, and it includes something like 50 certificates in the price that are all required by the government if you want to go that route for security. Look, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to careers, right? We're just talking about one angle on a career. This is why mentoring, the part I don't like about this thing I'm doing right now is I can't sit down with you one-on-one and evaluate with you what your goals are and help to adjust those goals as we go. And that makes it very hard. So if you have personal, advice that you need, please go to the Discord, maybe not to me directly, but maybe ask the questions. And once you kind of get a feel for the kind of direction and career you want to go, you should start asking questions in the Discord. And I got to tell you, the quality and caliber of people that are in our community is outstanding. I'm going to call out a few people. Please don't raise your hand if you don't want to be known. We have CTOs of massive corporations here. I have mentored the son of the CTO of PayPal. I have mentored, who was recommended by the CTO of Bank of America, and I have had, we have people in our community. Some of them are in the chat right now, probably, who have directly consulted with the president. I won't tell you which one, regarding cybersecurity and creating initiatives. What I'm trying to say is the people that are in this community, who a lot of times they lurk, and some of them are here right now. This is how I got my job, by the way. The current job that I have came by me meeting somebody on Twitch, by reaching out and going through a change of life during the COVID thing. And they said, well, gosh, we got jobs here. And I had a job within a month. So I mean it. Take advantage of our Discord. Take advantage of making friends. I'm not going to, people, I want to be kept anonymous here. So you never know who you're talking about. But I've had people who directly are responsible for hiring for their entire organizations give back feedback such as, and I quote, I would hire somebody with a Kubernetes lab that they built out of their garage or in their lab any day over anybody with a certification. And that was coming from somebody who would hire dozens of people for a company. So we have a lot of opportunity here when it comes to career advancement. Some might say that we're overly focused on career advancement as opposed to, we used to have people participate from the nonprofit sector. Some of them haven't been around lately, probably because I'm annoying, but don't overlook the nonprofit sector as well. There's lots of opportunities there. They don't pay as well. But what I wanted to show you with this is that 35% growth rate. That is insane. That's how fast the need for information security analysts is. This is even faster than AI specialists, right? So you got computer information scientists. This is kind of code for AI, right? But it's growing at 21%, right? So keep BLS in mind. I know it's just for American careers, but it is a fact-based, data-based estimation of where the careers are going and where you're going to find opportunity. You can always look at the statistics and stuff like that by going to Indeed and stuff like that as well, or going to the different job posting sites. We'll talk about that in the, when we start looking for job hunting. But if you want to kind of jump ahead and start doing that right now, do that. And so, yes, there's my Discord. Site reliability engineer. This is the new name for a systems administrator who codes. Yes, it's true. Everybody has to code now, unless you're a network engineer, but even pretty much every job in technology has some level of coding required these days. Google made a big deal coming out with a book describing what site reliability engineer meant. It basically is a systems administrator who kept machines running, who also knows how to code and script and put everything together, which is really what any good system admin already knew how to do, but now it's officially got a name. And so these are the titles you might want to search for if you're looking for jobs that will benefit from terminal-based Linux skills. Machine learning engineer, cloud native engineer. I'm an infrastructure engineer. This is mine. SRE sysadmin is better than DevOps. DevOps is another one. I didn't put DevOps here. DevOps, yes, I did. Okay, so DevOps is pretty much just Kubernetes and containers. But the job posting that I had eventually got, it called for an infrastructure engineer, and they specifically said, we want more than just a DevOps engineer, because they wanted somebody who knew more than just containers and how to run, CI/CD stuff. They wanted people who knew how networks worked, that had dealt with managing storage, and disks and stuff. So here's the titles, and I think I spent too much time on that. So we're going to jump ahead. Network engineers are always using Ansible and Terraform. Yeah, right. Yeah, and so again, Ansible is more or less scripting. It's declarative scripting, but it is scripting, right? Ansible is all written in Python, by the way. So we're actually converting a bunch of our systems over to Ansible right now. A bunch of our recipes are getting remember the home lab init stuff I talked about, that after the boost is done, if you want to learn Ansible and you want to learn it with me, because I'm not really good with it yet. If you Head Tennis is really good with it, but I'm still kind of new to Ansible. I've been managing my own systems over here using Ansible, but that's the next step. Don't get bogged down in the details right now with that. If somebody says, why don't you know Ansible yet, you can kind of like wait for that. Is there a difference between platform engineering and DevOps? Platform engineering is a relatively new term. Platform engineering, did I put it on here? I need to put it on if we don't have it. Platform engineering is a form of software engineering, and I don't like this term, but a platform engineer is someone who creates the APIs and the infrastructure that is used by other developers. And it's funny because that's actually what I'm doing right now at work. My coworker is he's the lead on it, and he's been building out an API to interface with our machine learning batch processing. And so he's written, this whole thing, and I architected the SSH integration layer so that we can use Secure Shell to talk to it. Fancy, all it really means is we've created a platform, which is largely a collection of APIs, but not always. An API is how you do something. We're going to go through all this, which is all JSON, by the way, and then the developers use that. So we're making software ultimately that other developers use to run stuff that is needed by the company on our overall infrastructure. That's what a platform engineer is. The infrastructure engineer is the one putting together all those pieces and all the infrastructure that supports a platform, a collection of APIs and stuff like that. So these are all buzzwords and terms that you're going to get hit with a lot. I don't shy away from using them right away, but if you do have questions about any of this, please ask in the Discord, and we are going to get more into this terminology and stuff near the end of the boost, right? So I don't want to bog down the terminal learning that we're going to be doing with too much of the nature of this, but these are great questions to ask me while I'm on my bike. Okay, so like if I'm on my bike and I'm trying to stay healthy and stuff, and you have a question like, what's the difference between a platform and an infrastructure engineer? That's a great question to hit me with while I'm riding the bike. Okay, so just come on back whenever you see me streaming with Zwift. You can come back and ask me any question you want, literally, and I'll do my best to answer you without being able to type or do my own research. Okay, so so that's that. And now we're going to close out with the final topic, which is I do want to make a note about the legal usage. So please don't misuse the term SKILSTAK, Beginner Boost, and Boost. These are just legal trademarks. All the stuff that I have out here is free for you to use, but not free for you to change. And the reason for that is because I'm afraid that somebody's going to take something I've said and they're going to change it, and then my content will be no longer representative of what I believe, even though it looks like it came from me. So I have a no derivatives requirement. So that means if you want to use any of this stuff, you can copy it and paste it. You just need to put the attribution to me in it, or to the community. And also, if you make any contribution, whether it's in chat or it's in comments, anything you do during this beginner boost becomes technically my property, so that I can share it with others without a fear of you coming after us. Okay, that's the only legal thing I want to talk about. So let's talk about learning, and we'll close out on this. And I know we're kind of running tight on time. Yes, het underscore tennis. Yes. There's a bunch of people doing Ansible though. So, but what I wanted to talk about was the RWX method, and I am going to have to see if I have anything written down about that. I don't think. Yeah, here we do. I think I do. I've started to write some here. Okay, so this is just kind of an overview. This is under the learn. I'm going to go see if I have this published. I don't know if I do. Let me go look. Again, a lot of this content is being written as we write it. So here we go, learning, right? Let's go. How does anyone learn anything? We talked about this. This will all be fleshed out. I don't want you to expect completed documents here. This is stuff that I do every year. I do a new version of it, or I tweak what's there. So a lot of times there's just nothing there, and then I just kind of transcribe what I've done in the YouTube videos and stuff into here. And that people will say there's nothing there, and that's normal. Okay, that's normal. And the main reason for that is because I want you to write your own content and not become dependent on this content. And let's talk about that. So we talked about fighting for a right to learn, stop fearing learning, take responsibility, give yourself permission, defend your creativity, destroy dogma. It's about people, mother. These are all the people that have been influential in me, but I jumped right down to Aaron Swartz and left it at that. Autodidactic habits. Stems from natural curiosity. We talked about that. Learn to answer your own questions. We talked about more than just independent learning. Why? Because an independent learner is somebody who just learns things on their own, but an autodidact, and you can go look up this term. You can just go search for it. Autodidact, or should we search it from the command line? So there's an autodidact. Let's go see what the command line has to say about this. Autodidact. I actually mentioned this to somebody in our community who's, I think, made up a book or a series called Autodidactic. Autodidactism or self-education is education without the guidance of masters or institutions. Generally, autodidacts are individuals who choose the subject they will study, their studying material, and the studying rhythm and time. Autodidacts may or may not have a formal education. Their study is either a complement to an alternative or formal education. So this distinction between an independent learner and an autodidact is an autodidact has a plan. Okay, they don't just learn on their own. I'm an independent learner. No, they actively maintain a plan of what it is, a skill stack, if you will, of what it is that they want to know and where they want to be. and they track that learning, and that leads us into the RWX method, and I want to talk about this. So this is kind of an accidental term. Personal progressive learning, we'll talk about that. I'm going to jump right ahead. So the RWX method, so RWX Rob, RWX is actually read, write, execute, and it's a shortcut for permissions, which we will learn when we talk about learning. When we talk about file permissions, like how to change access, and hacking and stuff like that, we're going to talk about permissions, and that's where RWX actually comes from. But along the way, over the last 4 years, RWX has come to mean more than that. And so I want to talk about that. So it's become sort of an acronym for many things. So R is for, and I actually kind of started to call it the RWX method for learning, which is just basically an extension of the scientific method combined with autodidactic habits, writing stuff down and stuff. So R is for reading, researching, reflecting, relating, reporting, repeating. It's all of that stuff that you do to do your own research, right? You can't learn without reading and researching and thinking about it. And those are fundamental, and definitely repetition. That's the learning. The W is for writing. It's for wandering around. It's for wondering, but it's mostly for writing. So the reason that my wife does a thing called morning pages, which all the creatives do, which in the morning, and there's this whole thing about join the 6 a.m. club. It's recently very trendy. And it's basically just journaling in the morning, right? So it's writing down what it is you've been wondering about, what it is you've been reflecting on, right? So writing is a fundamental part of learning. It doesn't seem like it because it's kind of coming out of you, right? But the act of writing is extremely informative. How many of you have been writing? I mean, raise your hand if this has happened to you. You've been writing down something in your journal, and you've been capturing a thought that you had, and while you were writing it down, the time it took you to write it down, your brain processed that idea and synthesized something new, right? It's a part of it. So while we're doing the writing, while we're focused on this, particularly if you're journaling, if you're like actually writing with your hand, I type a lot, but if you're really just writing it out, the speed of your writing is slower. So a lot of times your brain will fill in the gaps by tangenting off on different ways and, following those neural pathways and like finding other things. So writing is a fundamental part of learning. It's a way for you to capture what you've learned. It's a way for you to digest what you've learned and put it into your own words. It's a way for you to write your own textbook. It's a way for you to maintain a Zettelkasten with all your thoughts that you can go back to and you can query later. So you can go search for it, right? So if you are not writing, you're not learning. You're just not. Or you're learning in a way that's going to be transient and not sustainable or not permanent. And so you should add writing to it. And we're going to talk about writing, markdown, and all that stuff, that week in the coming weeks. But and how to take notes effectively and all that stuff. But just get into the habit of writing and knowing that that's a big part of it. The X, this is actually really, really important. This is what makes you into a hacker. This is learning like a hacker. Hackers are constantly, whether positive or whether it's for, good or ill, or it's a cybersecurity or not, they're constantly trying to figure out ways to take things that are designed to be used one way and use them another way. That's hacking, right? So hacking really isn't breaking into things. That's a different thing completely. The term's complicated, but hacking fundamentally is about taking something that's been designed to be used one way and using it another way that it wasn't intended for. And in order to do that, you need to experiment. You need to explore. You need to say, I wonder if this, what happens if I do this, right? What happens if I stick my tongue on this battery? It's like all of those things we did as kids that were experimental, that taught us things through experience. Because the act of failing and trying something and trying it again is the organic way to learn. And I have a story about this. So I can't remember the exact factory, but there was a factory up in the Northeast somewhere in America that shut down and it couldn't produce anything. And it was a rather old factory and it had a cam. If you guys know what a camshaft is, it's kind of like a thing for setting off the cylinders in your engine. And in this particular case, this cam was responsible for a lot of very highly precise machinery to use, and the cam broke, but it had been created in a way that nobody had any way to document or anything. They brought in all these mathematicians and everything to try to recreate it and everything. They all failed. And what they ended up doing is they used the same thing that AI actually uses now. They did, fail faster. So they started with a cam that sort of worked, and then they shaved off a little bit, and then they would do it again, and then they would shave it off a bit, and then do it again, and then shave it off a bit. And that's how nature works. And that's why we have so much, virus DNA in our DNA. Nature adapts to the situation and makes minute changes that succeed. And you can take those foundational principles and use them in your learning. So you can take a highly complicated, I probably lean on this a little bit too much, right? So sometimes people call this test-driven development, but I'll create a test case. I was like, okay, this is what I want it to do. And I'll get something that generally does the right thing, and then I'll try to break it, and then I'll try to get it to work enough. And as soon as it kind of fulfills all the test cases, it's more or less done, right? And then it's just a matter of crafting and cleaning up the code so it can be maintained. I am not a brilliant programmer. In fact, I find programming to be very painful. I do it a lot because I like what I get. And I tell this to people all the time. I don't live to code. There's some people who do live to code, and there's plenty of them on Twitch. That's not me. I would be rather riding my bike or outside or doing something else. But if I want something, if I want a tool to manage my note taking, if I want, I don't know, if I want, a bunch of machines, constantly scanning the internet for vulnerabilities so that they can get paid for free, if I want something, oh yeah, I'm all about the coding, but it's only when I want something, and that's really pragmatic. There's a bunch of books called From the Pragmatic Programmer, and they're designed for that. Coding is really just at the end of the day, it's just a means to an ends, and so many people think of it as an ends, and they're the kind of people that do lead code and stuff like that. And I got no problem with people who do athletic, coding competitions and that kind of thing. A lot of people love the act of coding, and I, by the way, I am not judging you, okay? I am not judging you. I'm just not. I've had to own that about myself. That I'm first of all, I'm not naturally good at it. I have known truly brilliant people in my day, and they can see through an algorithm in a way that my brain, that I know Google would probably look down upon. But you know what? I've gotten a lot of shit done in my life, pardon the French, and I have produced a lot of value, billions of dollars of value. I've written entire APIs. I've written my own network protocols because it was needed and it didn't exist. For IBM in particular, I made one that I know they made at least 1 billion off of it. And I can do it when it's needed, but I don't live for it, which would probably make me fail a coding interview because I don't like it. Like, what the hell is the point? I need to know what the point is, or I don't want to do it. Anyway, so enough of that. But so explaining, experimenting. So that's the RWX method. So read and do the research. Maybe write about what your thesis is and what you think is going to happen. It's very much the scientific method, right? And then explore, experiment with it, and write about it. Maybe read a little bit more, and then experiment some more and write about it. Experiment some more and write about it. I mean, Thomas Edison, all these people who, Tesla, whoever you want to say, all the people that have invented these different things, that's what they did because there was no book to read, right? They had to discover things. So they were autodidactic people. They were already following RWX practices, and you just need to start doing that today. So today you need to start, like, even if it's just jotting notes down about yourself, and then, you could like write down, some of those things, and just set up your own kind of, system for learning. And when we start getting into coding, we're going to talk about creating a code book, which is basically just a collection of little teeny tiny micro projects that illustrate one particular point about the code that you made. And the fact that you made it, instead of like knowing it's on page 85 of some overpriced, bombastic, forced on you book at the college that you get to return for like 60% of its value later, which is totally unethical in my opinion, except for that, other than that, right? So you actually have your own material. And if you organize your material using Make Docs or Zettelkasten or whatever, now you have a searchable database of your own knowledge, and you're building a knowledge base over time. And the sooner you start doing that, the more you're going to have to go on later. Then later on, you're going to be able to, in 2 weeks or something, you're going to be able to go back to that material. And I had one guy come back to me that I helped mentor, and he said, I really like that we did these micro projects because I have associated this meme we did, Monty Python, for example. They've associated the meme with a concept. And so when they had the concept, they needed the concept, like, oh yeah, that was in that thing that was associated with the waffle song or, some silly thing. And I do a lot of memes in my coding classes because the crazy association becomes helpful in calling it up later, even though you'd never ever find that in a book. The Head First series of books, by the way, does buy into this entire idea, which is the same idea, by the way, when it comes to memorization repetition, that those people who do competitive memory memorization competitions is what they do. They create the most elaborate, crazy scene, and they play that scene in their brain, and they associate each one of those scenes with a different different factor of pi, and then they can repeat pi out to 100 digits, because they're playing the story in the brain, because our brains are designed for capturing stories and narratives. That's how our brains work. So the sooner you can figure out how to adapt your learning into these narrative stories and write it down and then find a way to call it up, whether it's from a search engine or just because you remembered it, you're going to be more effective. And that's going to make you, because tech at the end of the day is constantly learning. You're never done learning. Right. And actually, I'm going to give credit where credit is due here. So there was, oh God, what's his name? He's another one of the Twitch people who does God, I can't believe I'm spacing on his name right now. He's got the dark curly hair. Leon, Learn with Leon. So Learn with Leon, one time I said, I was watching Learn with Leon, who does a bunch of free videos as well. He's a very successful mentor. T-Sodding, no, not him. And it was Learn with Leon, and it wasn't Parisian, no. But Learn with Leon once said, while I was watching his thing, he said that a tech career, and I'm trying to get it right, I want to be true to his idea. He said that a tech career is a lifestyle choice. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? And the more I've unpacked what he was saying, the more it's true. And it relates to what I'm talking about right now. Because when you choose a tech career, you're in it for the long game. You can't just say that you learned coding and now you're done. And now you're just going to code forever. And there's people who try to do this. Raise your hand if you know somebody in the tech world who has decided to never learn anything else. So they've got plenty enough. They don't ever want to learn anything else, and they're just making a paycheck. And raise your hand again if you know people like that were cut. Because I know a lot of them. Right? So what Leon's idea is that if you are going to commit to a tech career in the long term, and this is one of the reasons this whole boost exists, to help you make that decision. You're making a lifestyle choice. You are choosing to forever be learning, I think it applies across the board to any career, but particularly in tech, you have chosen that you have promised the world, I am going to keep my skills fresh. I am going to keep learning all the time. And it's assumed that you're going to, technologists complain all the time because they don't get enough time for training. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard mediocre engineers complain that they're not getting enough training dollars, or they're not getting enough time to do training, and they blame it on their company and they blame it on everybody else. When the fact of the matter is, when they signed up to be a technologist, they committed to themselves and to everybody around them that they would keep themselves current. Now, there is some responsibility from companies to provide time for you to do that learning. And these days, though, you don't have to have a dedicated Friday to do it like most companies do these days. It's just built in, right? So any decent industry manager these days is going to understand that when they ask you to go perform a backup on a Kubernetes cluster and you have no idea how to do it, that some amount of research and learning is included in it. It's included in the task. So what I'm saying is, if you don't like learning, if you don't like just-in-time learning, which is learning the minimum amount to perform the task at hand and to test it out and make sure it works, if that is not what you like, then don't get into tech, because tech demands it. It's a lifestyle. And that's the point that he was making. I really appreciate that. Free pro site training. Yeah, a lot of people have free Pluralsight training, which I think is fantastic. A lot of people, but more importantly, Pluralsight's a great resource. I'm not putting it down. More importantly, you have committed to yourself to being an autodidact, right? So that means that you've set forward your own learning plan for the year, and that you have, and by the way, most managers, if they see that you are proactively doing this, and if in your one-on-ones or something like that, you're able to share with them your personal plan for learning, and here's what I've done. So I have a story about this really quickly. So I was once sent to training. And they paid $2,200 to send me learn Oracle's PLSQL. And they spent $2,200, something like that, maybe $3,000 with the flight. We all went there. We went there for a week. I felt horribly guilty because I was eating on like an $80 per diem. I was living high on the hog, and I was totally dedicated to learning this Oracle, SQL language stuff. And I felt incredibly guilty because my wife at the time was home with 2 young kids, trying to raise them all by herself. And I'm out there. I feel like I was playing practically, learning and how to code and everything. And I really, really took it to heart. I really learned it. I crammed. I studied it when I was home. And I've come to realize that the other people in the class didn't do that. There were other people in the class that saw that as a free ticket for them to go, get drunk every night, show up whenever they wanted to the next day, and they all got their certificate at the end. Right? And I was absolutely mortified by that experience. That experience has stayed with me forever, and for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the reason it's so hard for you to get training these days is because of people like that. They have abused the system. They've taken the generosity of their companies, and they've decided that ticket to go to that conference is just a big ticket for them to party. And so then all of a sudden you actually go to get, you want to ask for some money to buy a book or something, and your manager's like, I don't know, that's taking away from money that we could use other places. And that whole opinion, that whole idea is coming because of the other jerks who totally wasted it and made it so that everybody is now any kind of dollars for education are now suspect, right? So the way I did it, I came back from my training, and I went to my manager, and I said, Barbie, if you'll give me half of that money for one training, I will buy the books and I will learn the equivalent of hundreds of hours, I promise you, and you can test me on this. And she said, sure, that's a great thing. So she gave me a check. She wrote me a check for $1,000 or something. And I went down to Powell's Books, and I filled my cubicle with colorful O'Reilly books. And this is back when you actually used to do that. And I read those books on public transportation, which was 2 hours a day, every day. And I gave myself essentially a master's. I learned networking. I had TCP/IP illustrated here somewhere. I came to just love that time with me and the book on public transportation. To this day, I still have fond memories being on a bus. When I sit on a bus and I can read a book, I still associate it with that nice, cozy, book feeling, like I'm going to learn this tech thing. And I saved them more money. I was way more performant. That was the year, my award is back there, but that was the year that I got there was a Finish Line award from Nike for building their intranet web presence. And I taught myself all of that. I had no knowledge of any of that stuff. And I taught it all to myself because I was given the resources, and I had signed up for, what it takes to do it. And did I charge them for those 2 hours of training that I did for myself? No, I didn't. But it was kind of implied that you're gonna do the learning, and a certain percentage of that is included in the time of your 40 hours a week or whatever. But that really depends, and that's kind of a hard thing to do because you kind of have to assess how much time is too much time, researching a topic. And rather than saying learning a topic, but I'll give you a hint. If you're in the industry, the way to say it is, I need to research that, right? And what that means is you're going to go totally, read and practice and learn about that thing and come back. But the nice word there is research, right? Well, I need to research that some more. That's like what you'll encounter in a meeting, right? That's what somebody will say. I was like, well, I haven't sufficiently researched that. What they mean is they have no idea what they're doing. Like, well, I need to put some more. I need to do a little bit more research on that topic. And when you say research, for some reason, it's like kind of easier to charge for it because it's included in what they're, you can't do the task until you learn how to do the task. And so, most good tech managers know that, and they're not going to ding you for not knowing already how to do it. Research equals Google. Yeah. You're academic math research, and I'm not really interested in a tech career, but I'm here to learn how to use computer more effectively. Yeah. So, and that's fine. And that's what I wanted to say. So I don't know if you saw that in the terminal thing, but there are a lot of people in the academic realm who benefit. And I put physicists and scientific people. There are a lot of those people who, quick story there. Somebody gave a demo to like 100 people in a company that I was in, and they were a machine learning person, and they were teaching us, a brilliant person. They were teaching us some stuff about machine learning, and they didn't know how to change a file name from the command line. And so they left the command line that they were using to run all their AI stuff, and their pumps and that stuff. So this is somebody who, I find this absolutely fascinating. This is somebody who knew all these other commands and stuff from the command line to do these really complex AI things, but they had never learned the MV command for renaming a file. And I kid you not, in the middle of a demo with like 500 people in the demo, they opened up their file explorer on the same computer, and they went in and they renamed the file using the file explorer. That actually happened. I would give anything to be able to show you that video. It was like very proprietary. And they had never learned the move command, but they knew everything else. I mean, they were brilliant. I'm not disparaging their capabilities, but and obviously they were from an AI background, so they were absolutely brilliant. But they had not learned the fundamental navigation and commands that obviously we're going to learn right away. That are also taught in the MIT missing semester today. And it's always some unexpected, yeah. All right, so I think I've gone on and on today. It's been really fun having everybody here. If you have any other questions, as I said in the Discord, we're going to be wrapping up here. So next, so we're gonna go to what can you do between now and then. So if you want to go do something right away. Let me just tell you what you can do right away. So make sure you watch Aaron Swartz's Internet Homeboy at some point between now and Saturday. I'm not going to be a quiz or anything, but just do it. Get yourself acquainted with SKILSTAK.io. If you want, you can go ahead and create yourself a GitHub account. We will be talking through that on Saturday, and install Podman Desktop. Those are some things that'll get us going. But I actually really think you should have Podman Desktop installed before Saturday, because I'm not going to show you how to install it. We're not going to go through installing it because I've already got it installed. I can't. I mean, I technically could. I could pull up a VM and install it on that and do it that way. But and maybe I'll try that. But mostly just do what it takes to get it installed. And what we'll do instead, though, is we'll start using Podman Desktop to fire up our first terminal, and then we'll talk about navigation, and we'll get into it. There's only a dozen commands that you need to really know to get good with the base navigation, and after that's done, we can start going into editing and doing some of the other stuff. Okay, so is there working with files, working with screens, UX, all these kind of things. I will be putting stuff here. This content will be growing over time. If there's something you want to have a priority before other things, please let me know. The idea is for this to stick around every year, and if anybody wants to actually contribute, we can actually all work on this together. But that's really it. So again, the homework is, if you don't know how to touch type, if we're assuming you already know how to do touch typing. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. Kind of quirky to install last time I tried. It's gotten better. The Podman Desktop last year was not nearly as good as it is now. So typing, we did not cover typing at all. When I used to do one-on-one mentoring, particularly with the younger kids, we would spend time doing touch typing a lot, right? If you don't know how to touch type, forget it. You're not going to be able to use VI. You're not going to be able to use anything else. And I'll let you guys share the information about that. We talk about cybernetics and network thinking. I don't know about that. I mean, that's maybe I don't know if I understand what that question means. Let me see if there's other questions. Let's see here. I'm just reading some of the other comments here. Yeah. Economic. Yeah. Okay. No starch books are good. Yeah, the no starch books are good. They kind of O'Reilly's kind of waning. They're not as good as they used to be. Be out for 14 days, and I find that very exhausting. To take off for 14 days and not study stuff. Everyone needs a break from time to time. I mean, after a certain time, I always feel overwhelmed by information and new interests, but there is rarely a routine. The work requires constant attention. That's true. I do think you need to focus on the work, but to be fair, I have not done any personal learning with regard to technology for over 2 months. So I'm going to confess that right now. I have been so laser focused on getting healthy again. I tell you what, I have done a lot of learning on cycling. Cycling and fitness. I have thrown myself, if you read my Zotocast, and it's filled with learning about fitness and cycling and doing it safely and Zwift and all of this stuff. That's become my focus. So, and frankly, my work has not required. I've on the job. I have learned about things that I was able to get done to fulfill the requirements of my job. And as I said, I just got a raise, got a great rating, so I'm fulfilling those needs. But I don't think you have to be learning about tech every week. But you definitely need to make time out for that. Now, if you go too long, you can get in trouble, right? Because then something changes, and and then you're like you're in trouble because you're not up to speed on what's changed. So anyway, those are some considerations. Any other comments before we go? Yeah, I love the cycling for the being good on the joints. The quicker you can type, the quicker you can get the ideas out, in at least my experience. I agree. And we talk about communication. Yes. And so typing is a thing. Let's see. You can learn every day for 24/7. Caffeine is your best friend. Yeah. Thanks from Punjab. Yes, you too. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not gonna belabor this point. This is a good day 0. I really don't want it to end. I know that's weird. Mostly because I don't stream tech things very much lately. So this has been really fun for me too. I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who has been here. What do I think about data science? Well, I think that people that are in the data professions don't like the term data science personally. It is definitely a technologist job. Yeah. There are a lot of people in AI and and data science who learn Python really well and Jupyter, and they don't learn the terminal. They don't learn Linux. And I'm just going to tell you that if that describes you, you can benefit greatly from learning Linux and the terminal in addition to your absolutely brilliant AI skills, which I actually want. In fact, if you continue to watch me over the next 2 years, my 5-year plan is I want to get really good with AI. I want to be able to, create my own AI models, and I want to be able to run the platforms that use AI. I want to be able to integrate AI into my vulnerability searches and do all of that kind of stuff. And I have met a number of people in the AI industry who are absolutely brilliant and really don't know Linux. And I've met a number of people who are absolutely amazing physicists, have no idea how to use Linux. They tend to use Python from the command line, and that's about it, or VS Code. So that is one set of people. I've worked with a bunch of business managers who were sick of using Excel for everything, and they wanted to pick up Python, right? So all of those people can benefit from the stuff that we're going to be covering. And again, so let me just recap, and then I'm going to close out. So for Saturday at 11:11 again, I'll be here at 11, but for Saturday we're get Docker Hub installed if you can. Did I say Docker Hub? I meant Podman Hub. Get Podman Hub installed. Is it even called Podman Hub? Podman Desktop. I'm getting tired. It's time for me to leave. Okay, let me restart. So for Saturday, help me out. Podman Desktop installed. Watch Aaron Swartz. Get motivated. Create yourself a GitHub account if you want. I mean, I'll go through what it takes to make one, but I won't create one because I have to throw it away. But and that's really it. That's really it. Learn how to type. If you don't know how to type, go ahead and practice your typing. And, you know, sign up for the Discord. Get in there so you can start asking your questions. Again, if you have any questions about any of this, about if it's related to the different, you might want to go play around on the Bureau of Labor Statistics site and see what careers you like. If you have any questions, come back when you see me Zwifting on Twitch, and I can answer questions for you. Okay? Okay. So to the YouTubers, I'm going to say goodbye. Stop recording. Here we go.